Since arriving here, it had been almost a month. Jian Wushuang had been fishing since the first day, consuming fish day after day. His strength had increased to over 10,000 jin. He had devoured nearly all the fat fish in the river, catching 3 to 5 every day. With my current physical strength, it's time to challenge that wild boar. Jian Wushuang's eyes flickered as he wiped the blood off his spear. As he stood up, he spotted a wild boar drinking downstream. This was the first time this particular boar had attacked him. Wild boars mostly lived in forests, with only a few wandering in grassy valleys. Swish! Jian Wushuang picked up a piece of gravel, took aim, and hurled it at the boar drinking water. A miserable squeal echoed through the valley as the stone hit the boar's hindquarters, causing it to limp away. "I'll deal with you tonight." Jian Wushuang gripped his spear and left the riverbank. After observing for several days, he noticed that wolves hunted on the eastern side of the river at night, while wild boars were on the western side. At that time, there would be no predators competing with him. Confident in his plan, he merged with the flock of sheep, found a slope, and lay down, patiently awaiting the arrival of night. According to his estimation, the power of a wild boar should be around 3,000. With his current strength, which surpassed 10,000 jin in both fists, he was many times stronger than before. Dealing with a wild boar should be a piece of cake. And that wild boar's hind leg was injured. It couldn't run away. It could only fight him. Lying on the slope, Jian Wushuang's gaze remained fixed on the injured wild boar. The sneak attack a moment ago had made the boar more cautious. It hadn't dared to approach the river since then. Night fell quickly. Jian Wushuang adjusted his physical aura to its peak. In a one-on-one battle tonight, he had a 90% chance of winning. He just feared the involvement of other animals. If he could kill this wild boar, he would have at least half a month's worth of food, and his physical strength would skyrocket. He had already eaten all the fish in the river. Everything was heading in a good direction. One by one, in 10 years' time, he could eat all these livestock without a problem. Under the cover of night, Jian Wushuang silently crossed the river and arrived at the territory of the wild boar and water buffalo. In this grassland, 70% was occupied by the herd of buffalo, and the remaining 30% was dominated by 7 wild boars. The buffalo, being naturally gentle, probably would have been driven away by the wild boars if they were as aggressive. However, their gentleness increased the difficulty of Jian Wushuang's hunting. In the future, if he wanted to hunt buffalo, he would face an entire community. The strength of a single buffalo probably exceeded tens of thousands of pounds. A few dozen of them meant several 100,000 pounds. It was not something he could currently provoke. Quietly bypassing the buffalo's territory, Jian Wushuang's steps gradually slowed down. Although his vision was somewhat blurry, he found the injured wild boar based on its bloody aura. It was lying under a tree, its tail swatting at the flies buzzing around it from time to time. Jian Wushuang licked his lips. The wild boar was injured. Although it was weaker than before, it was still very alert. It hadn't fallen asleep. Die! He tilted back slightly, holding a spear in one hand and fiercely thrust it forward. The piercing sound of the spear breaking the silence startled a wild boar, its tip pointing directly at its face. Shunk! Blood splattered as the spear struck the boar's skull, eliciting a gruesome cry that scattered birds perched on nearby trees. Even though the spear pierced the boar's head, it didn't immediately bring the creature down. Instead, it became even more furious than before. Even in its confusion, the boar recognized that Jian Wushuang was attacking it. Shivering, the boar suddenly unleashed tremendous strength and charged towards Jian Wushuang. However, its hind leg injuries were severe. Jian Wushuang simply sidestepped and then kicked the boar's hind leg with all his might. This kick, delivered with full force, made the boar's other hind leg produce a crisp sound. This time it seemed genuinely broken. With both hind legs shattered, the boar, no matter how strong, couldn't touch Jian Wushuang. Dragging its legs, it chased Jian Wushuang aimlessly, like a headless fly, darting around in all directions. Seizing the opportunity, Jian Wushuang leaped, raised his weapon high, and grabbed the spear embedded in the boar. With a powerful tug, he pulled out the spear, and red and white matter spilled out onto the ground. Taking advantage of this moment, he stabbed the boar's belly fiercely, then lifted it with a jab, flinging it several yards away, crashing it hard onto the ground. The boar, now lying on the ground, shook its head, blood flowing from its face. It attempted to roar again, but no sound came out, and it couldn't escape. Whoosh! After catching his breath, its eyes locked onto Jian Wushuang. Once again, it sprinted towards him, its two tusks aimed directly at Jian Wushuang's body. This time, Jian Wushuang didn't evade. He planted both legs firmly, pushed his left fist forward with all his might, and struck the boar's face. Crash! The fist collided with the boar's head, creating a muffled sound. Already having a hole in its skull, the boar's head collapsed upon impact with Jian Wushuang's fist. His entire fist plunged into the boar's forehead, and the two tusks missed him by a hair's breadth. Except for the last time when he had to exert some effort, the rest of the times were relatively easy. This time it was to test his current physical strength. With one punch, he pierced through the wild boar's head, a feat that satisfied him. After catching his breath, he turned to look at the remaining wild boars, his eyes filled with killing intent, making them hesitate to approach. The valley was not that big. Killing one wild boar affected not only many other animals but also the predators who dared not challenge Jian Wushuang. Who? Jian Wushuang hoisted the entire wild boar onto his shoulder, taking heavy steps, and started crossing the river, heading downstream. Upstream was the territory of a wolf pack. If he carried such a large wild boar there, he would likely be surrounded by wolves. Downstream, the water was deep, inhabited by water buffaloes. It was the perfect place to slaughter the wild boar. Additionally, the presence of the buffaloes would deter the wolves from approaching. Having thoroughly explored the entire canyon, Jian Wushuang found a cave by the pool downstream and began to slaughter the wild boar. He divided the meat, weighing 1,000 caddies, preparing to make a fire during the day to cook a meal fit for a human being. He had been eating raw fish for days, and he was nearly sick of it. With food and a somewhat concealed dwelling, Jian Wushuang gradually forgot that he was a cultivator. Jian Wushuang, with his unkempt beard and wild hair, looked like a savage. However, his body had undergone significant changes. Numerous patterns began to appear on his flesh. Although these patterns were not very clear, based on the totem they outlined, Jian Wushuang could see the likeness of a mythical beast. Spring turned into autumn and winter. Jian Wushuang had been living here for about a year. With the first wild boar's meat supplementing his diet, he had firmly rooted himself in this place. In a year's time, he managed to slaughter the remaining 6 wild boars as well. Now his strength had surpassed 30,000 jin. Boom! In the upstream waterfall, Jian Wushuang's body was bathed in the torrential waterfall, occasionally accompanied by numerous splashes hitting his body along with the water droplets. The patterns on his body became increasingly distinct, golden lines resembling the giant he had encountered in the starry sky. These lines adorned his back, chest, legs, and arms after almost half an hour of cleansing. Jian Wushuang left the upstream area and returned to his dwelling downstream. The cave had undergone significant changes over the past year, now a rather comfortable place. He had cut and arranged some animal hides to fashion a makeshift bed. Since entering this place, his daily routine had become similar to that of an ordinary person. Even though his physical strength had grown immensely, he still experienced hunger and fatigue. Puff! Jian Wushuang took a piece of charcoal from the pile, blew on it forcefully, and a flame erupted. Crackling sounds filled the air. After setting up the bonfire, he retrieved a hind leg of a water buffalo and began roasting it over the flames. After a while, he took out a sharp stone knife and started cutting slices from the roasted meat, devouring each piece. Every bite increased his strength. Now, he was no longer afraid of wolf packs. The animals in this valley posed little threat to him, except for the tiger king that lived in the woods. The boost from 10 wild boars was comparable to that of a water buffalo, and 10 sheep equaled a wild boar in terms of enhancement. This was his current estimation. The Tiger King's enhancement was likely the most significant. As for the wolf packs, he didn't have plans to deal with them at the moment. He had already eaten several sheep. Since he no longer needed to hide behind the flock, he would occasionally hunt solitary mountain goats. There were 9 years left, and he had to plan for what came next. He intended to finish off the remaining wild boars within this month, then move on to hunting water buffaloes. The sheep flock would be his final target. The Tiger King would come last. The initial rule was to consume all the livestock, which might not have included the Tiger King and the wolf packs. However, he didn't dare to take chances. It was best to eat them all. He had consumed most of the several hundred pounds of beef by the afternoon. Now, he could eat 1,000 pounds of meat in a day. Under normal circumstances, he could consume 400 to 500 pounds. The greater his strength, the greater his demands. In addition to hand-to-hand combat, he had also learned to set traps now. He had set many traps on the mountain, specifically designed to catch wild boars. If he was lucky, he wouldn't need to get his hands dirty. Jian Wushuang raised an eyebrow, slowly walking out of the cave. A sound of brutal struggle came from upstream. From the sound of it, it should be a wild boar. He moved swiftly, following the riverbank, heading upstream. Lucky again. It's probably another wild boar falling into the trap. A smile appeared on Jian Wushuang's face. It was better not to get involved if he didn't have to. He didn't come here to practice fighting with livestock. He came for his physical body. He would spare no effort to devour all the animals in this valley, leaving nothing behind. Time was running out, and he didn't have time to hunt them one by one. In addition to traps, he now targeted herds of sheep every day. Now those herds of sheep had become hostile towards him. It was hard to find any that were alone, so he had to deal with the water buffalo instead. The strength of one buffalo was worth tens of thousands of pounds. Fortunately, they weren't as agile as wild boars, so dealing with them was relatively easy. He ran along the riverbank for about 15 minutes, reaching the outskirts of the forest upstream. In the forest, aside from occasional distant howls, there was nothing to be seen, not even a trace of the usual wolf packs. There's something strange here. Jian Wushuang slowed his steps, surveying the surroundings before cautiously approaching the source of the howls in the woods. This time, he carried 4 or 5 short spears and a sword crafted from a cow's thigh bone. Although he lacked his original source and divine body, he hadn't forgotten the swordsmanship he had learned as Immortal. Confronting a pack of wolves, with his exceptional sword skills, he had nothing to fear. He gradually neared the depths of the forest. He found the wild boar that had been howling. It had indeed fallen into the trap he set. The boar's entire body had dropped into a narrow hole, with sharp bones piercing its flesh. Jian Wushuang secretly breathed a sigh of relief. For now, it seemed there weren't any problems. However, the disappearance of the wolf pack still made him uneasy. He decided to take the boar and leave immediately. The upper reaches of the forest had always been the territory of the wolves. If he didn't see any wolves now, there were only 2 possibilities. Either they were all dead, or they had been driven away by some other creature. Jian Wushuang became more convinced that the wolves had been driven away by something. In the entire valley, the strongest creature must be that Tiger King. Couldn't possibly be the wild boar that had scared away the wolves. Could it? Jian Wushuang cautiously approached the wild boar, a short spear in his hand. With a single strike, he pierced the boar's vital points, causing it to close its eyes in an instant. After hunting down so many beasts, he had long understood their weaknesses. Over a year's time, he had grown accustomed to it all. With one hand grasping the wild boar's ear, he pulled it out of the trap with explosive force, causing the ground to sink beneath its weight. At the next moment, Jian Wushuang suddenly stopped what he was doing and slowly released the boar. His gaze turned sharp. A deep, guttural roar resonated from the depths of his throat, shaking loose the dry leaves from the treetops, some of which struck Jian Wushuang's brow. Wolves! Jian Wushuang drew a short spear and turned slightly. 7 or 8 wild wolves appeared behind him. In the front, there were several more. He didn't need to look. The menacing eyes of the wolves on both sides were exposed. What had to happen finally happened. He dared to enter the valley, and the wolves didn't care as long as he was alone. But now his hunting had threatened the wolf pack. Wolves. These animals had an acute sense of danger. Jian Wushuang, as a hunter, had seriously threatened them. The wolves used all their cunning, just like the mantis preying on the cicada, while the oriole lurked behind. The low growls sent shivers down one's spine. At this moment, armed only with his physical strength, Jian Wushuang found it somewhat challenging to deal with the wolf pack. He wasn't very familiar with their strength. He moved his feet lightly, holding a short spear in each hand, ready to strike at any moment. Move! In an instant, the surrounding wolf pack rushed toward him like a swift wind. With one leap, they covered several yards, forcing Jian Wushuang to retreat. But there was no way to retreat now. He only had to choose the path that seemed easier to traverse and prepare to fight his way out. Stepping forward, Jian Wushuang aimed at a lone wolf that had fallen behind. His spear struck out, instantly killing it. Then he swiftly turned and left his previous position. In just the time it took to turn, several wild wolves attacked his previous spot. Their speed was incredibly fast. Ambushes, traps, and ambushes again. These wolves had come prepared. It seemed they were determined to keep him here. In the span of only an incense stick burning, Jian Wushuang's short spears were all used up, killing several wild wolves. Now he had no spears left, only a bone sword. The bone sword was made from a cow's bone, 3 feet long, with an unblemished edge. Swish! With the swordsmanship he had mastered, Jian Wushuang effortlessly wielded the sword, its tip spinning around, keeping the wild wolves at bay. And on Jian Wushuang's back, 3 blood-red gashes marked where the wild wolves had attacked, fresh blood trailing down, flesh turned inside out, a gruesome sight. The 3-foot sword in his hands was wielded with utmost precision. For a moment, neither side gained much advantage. El underestimated these beasts a bit. Jian Wushuang retreated to the side of a towering ancient tree, his bone sword in front of him, covering his eyes, observing the wolves in front of him only from beneath the blade. This scene felt incredibly familiar to him. He felt as if he had drawn his sword 100,000 times, and every time, it was under this tree. Now, he didn't have that much inspiration. When the wolves pounced, he flipped his body, lightly stepping on the tree trunk with the tip of his foot, and his body shot out like a dragon. Capture the leader first. In terms of strategy, these wild wolves were far lacking. He had long set his sights on the Wolf King, but he dared not show his killing intent in his eyes. The wolves would sense it. That's why he used the sword to cover his eyes, staring at the lower half of the Wolf King. With this leap, he covered dozens of yards, heading straight for the Wolf King's position. The wolf pack realized the danger, but it was too late. A sword's cold brilliance. The Wolf King's massive head rolled to the ground. Jian Wushuang stood in the Wolf King's place, his gaze icy as he scanned the remaining wild wolves. Howls. With the death of the Wolf King, these wild wolves were torn between avenging their leader and retreating. Now that half the wolf pack was dead or injured, if they fought, the entire pack would perish today. Just as both sides hesitated, Jian Wushuang felt a chill creeping up his back, a deep sense of dread. The wolf pack sensed the problem too. They wanted to escape, but it was already too late. A large yellow-spotted tiger leaped out, easily taking down a wild wolf with a single bite, then dashed around, completely scattering the wolf pack. Tiger King. Jian Wushuang was drenched in cold sweat. In an instant, half of the wolf pack was wiped out. The tiger's agility surpassed his own. In terms of strength, it effortlessly knocked down an ancient tree with a diameter of 10 yards, displaying a force well beyond 100,000 pounds. He was clearly no match. Run! Jian Wushuang's only thought now was to save his life. He needed to get out of there before he became tiger food. Based on his estimation, he could probably handle the Tiger King after consuming the entire herd of cattle and gaining a strength of around 100,000 pounds. But now was not the time. With swift and precise steps, he kept leaping forward. The Tiger King, having disposed of the wolf pack, stood on a moss-covered rock, watching Jian Wushuang's retreating figure with pale yellow eyes filled with murderous intent. In the valley, there was a delicate balance between the wolf pack and the Tiger King. Now, because of Jian Wushuang, the wolf pack was decimated. If they could also eliminate him, the whole valley would belong to the Tiger King. The herds of cattle and sheep would be its backyard. Standing on the rock, the Tiger King let out a fierce roar that echoed through the mountains, scattering flocks of birds from the trees. The Tiger King was much faster than Jian Wushuang. With every step, it covered dozens of yards. Their chase through the forest was conspicuously intense. "I'm done for," Jian Wushuang whispered to himself, abruptly halting his steps. Ahead, there was a cliff, and below it was the upstream waterfall. If he jumped, he would surely meet his end in a 1,000-foot fall. The Tiger King also slowed down, cautiously observing Jian Wushuang from all sides. The outcome of their battle could change in an instant. Anything could happen at the drop of a hat. Jian Wushuang hastily ripped a piece of cloth from his clothes, wiped his sword clean, and prepared for a desperate fight. His ordinary swordsmanship might not be enough to handle this Tiger King, but he had no other choice. After scrutinizing Jian Wushuang for a moment, as if sensing his vulnerability, the Tiger King let out a low growl and leaped towards Jian Wushuang. Facing the ferocious jaws, Jian Wushuang had no time to turn around. He swung his bone sword, its pure white blade gleaming like flowing light. Barely managing to flip over and evade the attack with a swift movement of his swordlight, Jian Wushuang fought against the Tiger King. Utilizing its powerful tiger claws, the Tiger King disrupted Jian Wushuang's fierce swordlight. As they separated, the Tiger King swung its tail, knocking the bone sword from Jian Wushuang's hand. The Tiger King, highly intelligent, quickly realized Jian Wushuang's reliance on the bone sword. Without it, he wouldn't stand a chance against the Tiger King's onslaught. Jian Wushuang felt his wrist go numb as the bone sword slipped from his grasp, landing aside. His cunning mind wouldn't let this opportunity slip away. Clenching his left fist, he struck the Tiger King's back fiercely. The force behind this punch was tremendous, sending shockwaves through the Tiger King's body, forcing it back several steps. Jian Wushuang also took a few steps back, clutching his right arm, trying to catch his breath. The skin of this beast is incredibly thick. Jian Wushuang gritted his teeth, feeling the soreness in his wrist. His punch, which could kill a water buffalo, had minimal effect on the Tiger King. Now, without his bone sword and with his current condition, continuing the fight would be highly unfavorable. Fortunately, having experienced the Tiger King's attacks before, Jian Wushuang narrowly evaded the subsequent bites several times. Huff! His breathing gradually became unstable. He had expended too much energy. Without yen power to replenish him, his physical strength, even at this point, was far lacking. This was the limit of the mortal realm. Physical strength was merely the first step. At the moment, his strength was just over 30,000 yen, a mere scratch on the surface when accumulated in his flesh, just a step towards opening up his meridians. This was the first refinement, and he hadn't noticed anything particularly special about it. Even if he slaughtered all the beasts in the gorge, consuming them entirely, he would only gain 1,000,000 yen in strength. Stacking that onto his physical body was at best opening 108 veins, pushing his mortal body to its limits. Yet this was just the mundane realm. This bit of physical strength, not to mention an immortal, even an ordinary cultivator could easily crush him. This wasn't what he desired. He was too weak. Even though it was only the first refinement, it was still too feeble, falling far below his expectations. Feeling the wound on his back, the burning pain made Jian Wushuang sweat profusely, mingling with his blood. A gruesome gash adorned his forehead, horrifying to behold. He couldn't afford to drag this out any longer. Jian Wushuang steeled his resolve. He had to make a desperate move. The Tiger King lowered its head. Its pale yellow eyes glowed with a murderous aura. Thud! A gust of wind swept by, and the Tiger King pounced again. This time, Jian Wushuang didn't evade. He had little strength left to dodge. He bent his legs, arched his body backward, eyeing the bone sword not far away. He focused his attention. In the split second that the Tiger King lunged, he slid on the ground, reaching beneath the Tiger King's belly, grabbing the bone sword. With all his might, he stabbed it into the Tiger King's abdomen. He used every ounce of his strength, gripping the bone sword tightly with both hands. Leveraging the Tiger King's momentum, the bone sword cut a several-foot-long gash in its abdomen. Hot blood sprayed, covering Jian Wushuang. The Tiger King's massive body fell heavily to the ground, dead beyond death. Jian Wushuang released the bone sword, collapsing onto the ground, gasping for air. Tiger blood trickled from his mouth, mixing with his sweat, making his entire body boil. He was undergoing a transformation. In this battle, Jian Wushuang thoroughly understood all his opponents. The entire valley had become his garden. Within 10 years, he effortlessly cleared all the beasts. Apart from the Tiger King's corpse, he also brought back all the wolf heads to his cave. This harvest was enough to sustain him for 3 months without needing to hunt. He just needed to refine his body. The power in the flesh and blood of these beasts was formidable. Even after devouring them, Jian Wushuang needed to refine his body, absorbing all the essence from their flesh and blood. For example, the Tiger King's blood was a great tonic for his physique. His bones underwent changes, and the golden patterns on his body became more pronounced. In the following days, he wholeheartedly refined his body, absorbing the essence of the Tiger King, breaking through his physical strength to 100,000. It's still not enough. Jian Wushuang looked at the bones scattered all around, feeling somewhat helpless. He had thought that the Tiger King would at least elevate his physical body to a higher level, but in the end it only increased his strength a bit. The changes in his bones were not significant either. After all, he wasn't a heaven-defying talent. As his physical body grew stronger, the beasts in the valley no longer posed a threat to him. Whenever he felt hungry, he would casually hunt down a water buffalo. He chose to eat only the freshest meat. Time flew by. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Jian Wushuang finished gnawing on the last rib of lamb, letting out a satisfied burp. Now he was no different from a wild man, covered in dirt, wearing tattered clothes. In this valley, he was the only one left who could breathe. The incredibly burly Jian Wushuang made the earth tremble with every step he took, each footfall weighing tens of thousands of kilograms. Thud! On the final day, Jian Wushuang stood atop a cliff, overlooking the valley where he had once fought the Tiger King. These 10 years had been the most extraordinary period of his cultivation journey. He had truly become a wild man, living completely off the land. For millions of years under the starry sky, at least he still had some strength left. But when he first arrived in this valley, he was just an ordinary man, weaker than the wild boars that roamed the area. And now it was time to leave. He took one last look. In the next moment, he jumped directly into the unfathomable pool below. He took a good look at his robust physique. Now, he seemed to have undergone a complete transformation. His entire skeletal structure was massive. Clear and clean golden patterns emerged on his chest and back, becoming more prominent as he exerted force. The harder he exerted himself, the more prominent the golden patterns became. The golden patterns depicted an ancient and unfamiliar beast, unknown even to Jian Wushuang. Inside the demon ceiling pillar, outside the trial tower, a middle-aged man in black armor pointed, and a stream of light turned into tens of thousands of radiance, flying into the trial tower. Each beam of light transformed into a black-robed messenger, guiding the 100,000 Jian Wushuangs within the trial tower. Finally, the golden light condensed into a single point, and the 100,000 duplicates also merged into one Jian Wushuang. The Jian Wushuang who returned inside the demon suppression pillar was no different from the one who had just entered. The frenzied demonic annihilation armor was still there. "What's this?" Jian Wushuang exclaimed in astonishment. In that moment of fusion, he realized that he had actually split into 100,000 duplicates. No need to be surprised. In the first refinement, you've already completed half of it, said the man in black armor indifferently. Jian Wushuang quickly stowed away his armor, revealing a black martial attire underneath. With a slight exertion, his upper garment shattered into pieces. Looking at his chest, golden patterns gleamed brightly, outlining every inch of his flesh. His divine body, amplified 1,000-fold, operated furiously at this moment. Both his divine body and origin source returned, and the familiar sense of control brought Jian Wushuang back to reality completely. In astonishment, he asked, "Senior, is all of this an illusion?" He found it hard to believe. His physical body had undoubtedly strengthened, but everything felt unreal, especially after transforming into 100,000 copies, each with identical memories and no deviation whatsoever. It was too miraculous. The man in black armor smiled faintly and replied, "Advance to the universal bronze furnace first. Once your initial refining is complete, I'll answer your questions. Right now, you haven't even completed half of it. After your physical body is truly condensed and tempered, that will be the first refinement. Indeed, if enhancing the supreme physical body were that simple, it wouldn't deter so many powerful beings. The threshold of the divine body, the process of refining the supreme physical body, couldn't possibly be this straightforward." Jian Wushuang nodded. He understood that once he entered the first level of the trial tower, he wouldn't be able to use anything. He would be merely an ordinary person at that point. But the threshold for refining the supreme quality physical body was the divine body, which he couldn't use inside the trial tower. Obviously, something was amiss. Perhaps the threshold of the divine body lay within this universe bronze furnace. His hair billowed, his upper body bare, and his broad back resembled that of a war god. Crack! The universe bronze furnace was opened. A scorching wave of heat washed over him. This aura was potent enough to annihilate Grand Yen immortals. Yet Jian Wushuang was about to immerse himself in it for a whole hour, refining his body. If he didn't possess a body 1,000 times stronger, he would likely be reduced to ashes within moments of entering. Jian Wushuang swallowed hard, his lips parched. After bowing respectfully to the black-armored man, he resolutely stepped into the bronze furnace. Inside the furnace, he truly experienced what hellish torment meant. The scorching sensation was far from ordinary earthly flames. Within this cosmic bronze furnace lay a fragment of a prime source. As soon as Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged on the burning red ground, he sensed the pulsating energy of the source. "It's an unclaimed prime source." Jian Wushuang's face lit up with joy. In an instant, a daring idea sprang to his mind. Initially, he thought the source belonged to the black-armored senior outside. Now it seemed someone else had infused this prime source here. Buzz! Before he could dwell on this, the moment the cosmic bronze furnace closed, flames soared. Whoosh! Countless treasures were taken out, all necessary for the first refining. These treasures alone could directly enhance a Grand Yen immortal's physical body to perfection. The treasures from the first 3 refinements were enough to forge a body stronger than even Emperor Mo Long's. This was just a direct upgrade. If the universe bronze furnace aided in tempering his body, his first refinement might rival the perfection of a high-grade body. Jian Wushuang had no time to think about anything else. Countless treasures were refined by the flames into a golden liquid, swirling around his body. The scorching flames incessantly eroded his body, causing it to decay and then regenerate repeatedly. This continuous cycle proved too much for even the mightiest divine body to withstand, especially since he had expanded his domain of beast god to its utmost limits. Although the range now only covered his physical body, the expenditure of yen power and divine energy remained the same. An hour passed, and he truly reached his limit. Jian Wushuang gritted his teeth. This was more painful than he had imagined. Every time his body shattered, it grew stronger by a fraction. He needed 10,000 shatterings. The blood essence from 10,000 realms needed to merge into one entity. It wasn't as simple as it sounded. In the end, after 100,000 fractures, his physical body was completely transformed into a mass of flesh and blood. Now, sitting cross-legged, there was only a divine body shadow. The mass of flesh and blood and the treasures swirling around him slowly merged. Countless golden liquid refined from treasures, thoroughly mixed with the flesh, turned into a golden sphere. Then, following his divine body shadow, the process of reshaping his physical body began. The first refinement arrived, the most critical moment. If he withstands it, he completes the first perfect refinement of reshaping the physical body. If he can't withstand it, all the expenses would go down the drain. At this moment, Jian Wushuang dared not be negligent. He cooperated fully with the universe bronze furnace to complete the final step. Starting from the bones. The colorful and magnificent skeleton was very familiar to Jian Wushuang. It was a fragment of an ancient beast god's bone that he had exchanged for millions of treasure points. Now it had been refined into liquid, impurities removed, surpassing its former state, becoming his bones entirely. The massive skeleton stood over 9 feet tall. Compared to the previous Jian Wushuang, there wasn't much difference. After all, it was crafted according to his divine body shadow. After completing the skeleton, they began to irrigate the flesh. Starting from the head, a majestic face emerged. Sharp sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. Between his brows, it seemed like there was a vast starry sky, unparalleled throughout eternity. Then came the upper body, revealing a robust physique, every inch of muscle sharply defined, wrists broad and thick. The golden patterns on his chest and back became even more prominent. Until the entire physical body was completely reshaped, Jian Wushuang finally breathed a sigh of relief. His breath was like a rainbow, although it evaporated instantly as he exhaled due to the flames. Jian Wushuang could still distinctly feel that his physical body now was countless times stronger than before. With one punch, he could shatter a star without even using yen power. If he completed the 9th refinement, he dared not imagine how powerful he would become. Although enhancing the physical body seemed somewhat foolish, Jian Wushuang was absolutely certain that this decision was wise. Origin source, divine body, realm, soul, all these aspects were at the edge of breakthrough. Instead of blindly persisting in one path, he chose to explore other avenues. As long as his strength underwent a qualitative change, everything was possible. Rumble. The universe bronze furnace slowly opened. Jian Wushuang casually walked out, clad in a new set of black robes after stepping out of the bronze furnace. "Congratulations, Jian Wushuang. It's luck," he replied modestly. His entire demeanor had undergone a noticeable transformation. Now he truly understood what a superior physique represented. No wonder, after the 7th refinement, it signified the peak, let alone the 9th refinement. Even if he hadn't reached the 7th refinement, his physical strength far surpassed those with high-level perfected bodies. "This isn't just luck, it's your strength," said the man in black armor, pausing for a moment before continuing. "By the way, you can call me Mountain Lord from now on. No need to address me as senior." Mountain Lord. Jian Wushuang was astonished. Wasn't that the demon lord bound to the demon ceiling pillar? The first time he saw the man, he wasn't this affable. He had a fierce and malevolent appearance. "Why, are you surprised?" Mountain Lord smiled faintly. "Right, you youngsters are now in the 2nd phase of the trial. You should encounter those demon lords." "Senior, you seem different from those devouring demons," Jian Wushuang asked curiously. The devouring demons he had seen were all frenzied, lacking much consciousness. Unlike them, Mountain Lord, whether in his original form on the demon ceiling pillar or this current ethereal image, possessed consciousness, especially this ethereal image. It was nothing like the devouring demons. "Ha ha!" Mountain Lord couldn't help but laugh heartily. "Naturally, the devouring demons you see are just projections of the 10,000 demons." Jian Wushuang looked puzzled and muttered, "10,000 demons? Yes. You haven't become a core inheritor yet. No need to know so much." Mountain Lord's ethereal figure floated above the universe bronze furnace, wearing a reminiscing expression beneath the faint glow. When the true master fell, it split into countless parts, creating the several individuals like them, now all suppressed within this Qishan temple. In the outside world, another true god, who also mastered the complete Tao, was suppressed. The devouring Tao. He once lost all hope, but he now encountered Jian Wushuang, a practitioner who reignited his hope. a grand Yen immortal who cultivated the power of devouring. He didn't exude the aura of the great Tao of devouring, but the malicious vibe of devouring power was identical to theirs. He was a host, true lords, demon lords, and devouring demons. The true lord was the one suppressed in the original universe, comparable to the universe master. The several demon lords possessed top-tier 6 strength. As for the devouring demons, they were just splits from the lord of 10,000 demons. Each of them held secrets of the universe. They once shone brilliantly, but eventually, the true lord fell, and they were all captured by the Qixin temple. Qixin, the great Qixin who stripped away his own devouring Tao. Such a heroic act, cutting off one's own path, was simply awe-inspiring throughout history. Initially, they merged into one, embodying the essence of myriad Taos. But it condensed 3 true Lord-level experts and one who remained missing, their fate unknown. Now, seeing another practitioner possessing the power of devouring, how could Mountain Lord, also known as Shan Jun, not feel delighted? Jian Wushuang noticed the pain in Shan Jun's eyes and changed the subject, inquiring about the trial tower. Originally, the first floor of the trial tower was constructed by the 10,000 executioners. Once inside, the body would split into 10,000 parts. His body in the valley was just 1 in 10,000. No wonder he was so weak. At first, he thought he was suppressed, but in the end, his strength was divided. Even in terms of physical strength, Jian Wushuang had supreme power. Being split into 10,000 parts and he turned into an ordinary person. It made sense. Now back to 1. Refined further, his physical body could already rival ordinary treasures. Even if he stood still and allowed a 9 revolutions grand Yen immortal to attack madly, he wouldn't be harmed in the slightest. And this was without using his divine body and origin source. If he added his divine body and origin source, even a Tao Lord wouldn't be able to harm him. Now, with his physical body magnified 1,000-fold by the divine body, he had reached the pinnacle among grand Yen immortals. But this was far from enough. He wanted to become the strongest, even surpass those ancient gods and demons. In the end, even with the divine body magnified 1,000-fold, he still relied on the candle dragon eye. They were all external things. The fundamental divine body, coupled with a perfected physical body, was the real foundation. If the basic divine body was magnified 1,000-fold, he would truly be invincible. Relying solely on the divine body would be comparable to grand Yen immortals who had mastered the ultimate Tao. Alright, I've said what needs to be said. You can enter the trial tower now. Although you have deep foundations, the 2nd floor is very special. You mustn't be careless. Shan Jun advised with a gentle gaze, as if a 9-level trial tower. Jian Wushuang never underestimated any floor. Millions of treasure points were still invested in it. How could he afford to be careless? He gave his all every time. The doors of the trial swung open. Jian Wushuang nodded, took a step forward, and entered the trial tower once again. This time, as Shan Jun had said, it was markedly different. The 2nd level of the trial tower made him reminisce about the ease of the 1st level. This 2nd level was eerily similar to the hell he had imagined. The terrifying entities he saw on this level, the horrifying creatures churning in the lava, were things he hoped never to encounter in his lifetime again. I hope you guys never see the light of day again. In the 2nd level, Jian Wushuang's strength wasn't divided or suppressed. He possessed his utmost pinnacle power. However, his strength was useless on this level. There were 360 chains, and he needed to traverse each one entirely. Below these chains roared ancient gods and demons in the lava. Each of them had the strength of an emperor, and some even surpassed Jin Wuyang. They fought and roared in the magma. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang cautiously walked on the chains, his innate treasure armor becoming scalding hot in the terrifying heat. Regular treasures could melt at any time in this purgatory. After traversing all 360 chains, he felt his feet had lost all sensation, his consciousness stiffening. When he stepped onto the lotus-shaped altar, his legs were as unmovable as stone pillars. He had truly achieved an unshakable stance. The lotus altar was the only land in this purgatory, a mere few miles in length and width, standing tall above the lava like a towering pillar. Surrounding him were chains glowing in a deep red hue, beneath which lay terrifying lava and enormous beasts. Phew! Turning his gaze back to the lava beasts below, Jian Wushuang was still catching his breath. This wasn't just a test of his physical endurance, but a test of his willpower. Walking on the chains, the scorching sensation constantly tempered his body. Below him, the lava beasts posed a constant threat. One wrong move or a failure in endurance would result in a fall. Falling. Jian Wushuang felt cold sweat forming on his back. He didn't even dare to imagine what it would be like to fall. He had been walking for 300 years, enduring this ordeal every moment. He had to maintain his beast god domain constantly, amplifying his divine body. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to endure this trial. Especially the torment on his willpower, it made him incredibly stiff, or rather, extraordinarily resilient. No matter what, he would firmly take each step. Upon arriving at the altar, he felt no sense of relief. It wasn't until several hours had passed that he finally opened his eyes and looked toward the center of the altar. According to the information transmitted by the token, he needed to offer his current physical body as a sacrifice on the altar. Although he didn't understand why it had to be so extreme, he had no choice but to comply. He could only walk towards the altar. At the core of the altar, there was a massive bronze cauldron placed. Following the instructions on the token, Jian Wushuang began the ritual. Thud! He knelt down on both knees, raising his hands above his head, performing a full-body kowtow to the heavens. Thud! 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 He kowtowed 3 times in succession. Great wilderness, please accept this body. Jian Wushuang slowly stood up, but his physical form remained kneeling beside the large cauldron. The ethereal figure of the deity stood up. Buzz! A loud noise resonated as his physical body slowly rose and then leaped into the giant cauldron. Boom! A beam of light erupted from the cauldron. Jian Wushuang's ethereal figure trembled. Then, everything fell silent. Jian Wushuang frowned. Was that all there was to it? In the next moment, the cauldron burst forth with another beam of light, releasing 3 bronze locks. There was also a kind-looking old man with a white beard. His eyes curved at the corners. Offeror, which lock did you just sacrifice? The white-bearded old man opened his palm, and the 3 bronze locks emitted golden, silver, and yellow hues, corresponding to 3 different grades. I think I sacrificed. Jian Wushuang was about to blurt out but stopped abruptly. He had originally wanted to say that he sacrificed his physical body. However, he thought again. Since he was given 3 treasures, he had no other choice but to choose one from the 3. Senior. One sacrificed this golden lock. Jian Wushuang bowed respectfully, his attitude extremely deferential. The white-haired old man pondered for a moment and sighed, saying, "Oh, I see. This golden lock. I bestow it upon you." The golden small lock floated toward Jian Wushuang, embroidered with several dragon-shaped patterns on top. The aura it exuded was incredibly powerful. When the golden lock touched his ethereal figure, his divine body instantly radiated with a brilliant light, beginning to reshape a new physical body. Though similar to his previous one, this new body was enhanced by the fusion with the golden lock, making his divine body even stronger than before. Dragon Lock Body. Jian Wushuang's flesh turned golden, and within him, a gigantic dragon was locked. Just as he was astonished, the white-haired old man sighed and said regretfully, what a pity that such a superior physical body went unclaimed. I can finally go fishing now." As soon as the old man finished speaking, a fishing rod appeared in his hand out of thin air, with a body exactly like Jian Wushuang's hanging on the hook. The fishing rod extended for thousands of feet, casting down into the magma below. Before long, he caught a lava giant beast. However, the lava giant beast, caught by the fishing rod, had become extremely small and weak, its aura also greatly diminished. The old man with the white beard was very happy. He put away his fishing rod, grabbed the lava giant beast with both hands, and entered the big cauldron again with a smile on his face. Only Jian Wushuang was left, standing in the wind, feeling disheveled. It seems like I missed something. His physical body. Yes, his physical body. The unclaimed physical body. Wasn't that the one he sacrificed? This old man with the white beard knew it was his physical body. Yet he lamented in front of him. It was really malicious to the core. Jian Wushuang was furious on the spot. Although he had obtained the golden lock, the increase in physical strength was limited and didn't meet the requirements of the second level's rewards. Just then, a message came from the token. Inheritance trial failed. Damn it! Jian Wushuang didn't dare to speak out, but he cursed the white-haired old man 1,000 times in his heart. Now that the trial had failed, what should he do? He hadn't died yet. Whoosh! He was forcibly moved back to the starting point uncontrollably. This was also where the dream began. Everything returned to the beginning. He looked exactly like he did when he first entered the second-level trial tower, except his physical body had become much stronger than before. Part of it was due to the training from walking along the 360 chains, especially the flexibility in his legs, which was very obvious. Another part came from the golden lock. This trip wasn't in vain, at least, Jian Wushuang comforted himself. But when he looked ahead, countless chains crisscrossed in all directions. He felt like he wanted to die. He had spent all his treasure points, and now he had no choice but to plow through with gritted teeth. Fortunately, he had the experience from the first time and his own strong will, along with a powerful state of mind, which prevented him from collapsing. It was just that he had wasted more than 100 years for nothing. The flow within the demon ceiling pillar was incredibly slow. Meanwhile, on the Demon Sound Mountain in the outside world, Tier 4 emperors had reached halfway up the mountain, facing off against Shan Jun's avatars. Hundreds of Tier 4 emperors confronted hundreds of avatars, and the closer these avatars were to the mountaintop, the stronger they became. The battle between the two sides was exceptionally fierce. However, Shan Jun's main body, bound within the demon ceiling pillar, paid no attention. His sole concern was Jian Wushuang's trial within the trial tower. He was completely indifferent to everything else, to the extent that he ignored the deaths of many of his avatars. Inside the trial tower, Jian Wushuang's figure swayed on the chains. He looked tiny compared to the colossal lava beasts. Phew! Stepping onto the altar once again, he felt a sense of relief. The sacrificial ritual proceeded as usual. However, this time he felt more composed. As the ritual concluded and his physical body entered the large cauldron, Jian Wushuang began to feel excited. Regardless of what treasures the old man with the white beard might bring out, this time, he was determined to sacrifice his physical body, nothing else. Are you sure you want to sacrifice your physical body, young man? Jian Wushuang's face remained steadfast. Just as he was about to confirm again, a steady voice echoed in his ears. Choose the silver lock. What? This voice? It was very familiar. It was Shan Jun from the bronze furnace. How can this be? Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed as Shan Jun's voice came again, revealing the secrets of the second level to him. It turned out that the 3 locks in the white-bearded man's hands were a kind of treasure. The golden lock he had obtained earlier was just one of them. Used individually, the benefits were minimal, but when the 3 locks were combined, the gains were immense. At that point, his physical strength would increase by a level. Then, when he sacrificed his body again, choosing the body, he would obtain 2 identical bodies. With the 2 combined and refined in the universe bronze furnace, earth-shattering changes would occur. Choose the silver lock. Jian Wushuang quickly changed his choice. He only half believed Shan Jun's words. After all, it was just 100 years. Even if Shan Jun was deceiving him, he wouldn't suffer much. The white-bearded old man raised an eyebrow, looking somewhat displeased, gazing above the altar. But since Jian Wushuang had already made a choice, he couldn't say anything. He just deviated from his usual demeanor, snorted coldly, and tossed the silver lock to Jian Wushuang. The first time was the golden lock, the second time the silver lock, the third time the bronze lock, and only the fourth time was the body. Jian Wushuang looked at the chains beneath his feet. His journey was still long. Fortunately, his mental fortitude was strong. Otherwise, he would have gone insane. However, one thing surprised him. The first time took 100 years, but the second time didn't take as long. The third one was even longer. This was related to his physical ascent. However, his 10,000-fold divine body relied on external objects for enhancement and couldn't be maintained for too long. If only his basic divine body could be 10,000-fold, that would be great. Half of his origin power was concentrated in his divine body, leaving the rest to temper his physical body. This pressure constantly tormented Jian Wushuang's will. Finally, he gathered 3 locks, and he felt considerably weakened. Shan Jun didn't deceive me after all. 3 giant dragons inside him roamed through his meridians, making his body tens of times stronger than before. If he had chosen the physical body the first time, he would have only gained an initial body. If the two overlapped now, it would far surpass anything before, increasing by hundreds of times. Do you choose the physical body? The 4th time. Before Jian Wushuang could speak, the white-bearded old man asked the question first. Yes. Jian Wushuang's heart stirred, feeling uneasy. This old man seemed less and less like a good person. Could he be plotting against him? Humph! The white-haired old man snorted. Young man, some people's words shouldn't be listened to too much. It's not good to walk a narrow path. After leaving these words, the white-bearded old man disappeared. Only a physical body remained. And when Jian Wushuang was sent away again, he once again condensed a new physical body. 2 bodies identical in every way as if replicated. Their strength was also equal. Upon exiting the trial tower, Jian Wushuang found it hard to believe. The bodies he had obtained before were lifeless or just simple shells. But he hadn't expected that these bodies could contain a divine form and an origin source, essentially becoming another divine body for him. Greetings, my lord. Greetings, my clone. They clasped hands, their smiles mirroring each other. If it weren't for his own knowledge, he wouldn't have been able to tell which one was his true self and which was the clone. With a thought, they instantly distanced themselves and then clenched their fists, striking with all their might. Boom! A close-quarters brawl. Their fists roared, clashing for hundreds of moves in succession. Huff! After separating again, Jian Wushuang's main body nodded. Perfect strength. The power of each punch was comparable to that of a half-step emperor. With the 10,000-fold divine body and the physical body combined, he could match a half-step emperor. If he added the origin source, his combat power would be even stronger. Heavenly Emperor Wanxing wouldn't be his match. In fact, he had chosen the physical body in the beginning for a reason. The Beast God weapon. Once the Beast God's weapon merged, his Beast God domain would become even stronger. By then, he would surpass the 10,000-fold divine body. If his physical body couldn't bear the strain, it would severely affect his divine body. He had already planned his future path. The invincible origin source made him stronger than anyone else. The existence of the extreme Tao alone was enough to dominate his peers. What remained was the path of the divine body. With the Beast God weapon, the Candle Dragon, his spatial origin source would be more effective, corresponding to future realm advancements. The second feature was the enhancement of the divine body. Any Beast God weapon on Ction would be his, no matter the cost. He had to obtain them. Once the 3 merged, once the old man with goat horns successfully refined it for him, once the spatial origin source was reassembled, his Beast God domain would reach a new level. At that time, when fully unleashed, his divine body would break through the 10,000-fold limit. This was the path he intended to tread. Swoosh! A black mist emanated from the universe bronze furnace, transforming into Shan Jun. Not bad. Perfect dragonlock veins. And there are 2 pairs. Shan Jun smiled, thoroughly satisfied as he looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang didn't have time to ponder. He immediately bowed. This time, Shan Jun had done him a great favor, comparable to a unique stroke of luck. Without Shan Jun, this trial wouldn't have ended so successfully. Shan Jun smiled, saying, "You don't need to thank me. As I said before, this is what you deserve." Without Senior's guidance, I'm afraid I wouldn't have obtained such perfect veins, Jian Wushuang said sincerely. Jian Wushuang, although his mindset had undergone a sudden change, he could still recognize those who had been kind to him. This karmic bond, regardless of what happened in the future, he would repay when given the chance. Oh, I should remind you, after the first 3 basic trials, for the following 6 trials, you might remain inside the trial tower continuously. Be well prepared, Shan Jun reminded him. Still here, Jian Wushuang was surprised. Wasn't it said that after every trial, they would enter the universe bronze furnace? It had only been a few hundred years, and he was already feeling exhausted maintaining his body at 1,000 times its divine power. The following 6 refinements would require thousands, even tens of thousands of years. He was truly afraid he couldn't endure the intense physical tempering. Don't be too nervous. With your current strength, you can probably handle the 6th level, barely tempering a supreme body. As for the last 3 levels, you might not even have to go there. Jian Wushuang nodded, although he felt somewhat dissatisfied. Yet he knew his own strength best. Given the increasing difficulty of these trials, the 6th level was indeed his limit. Shan Jun's status was extraordinary. He was the demon lord suppressed in this place. His power far surpassed countless peak emperors. Perhaps even the ultimate emperor of his original universe weren't as powerful as Shan Jun. He naturally believed in the assessment of such a figure. However, things could change. He hoped that, in the time to come, he would truly undergo a transformation. Entering the universe bronze furnace for the 2nd time, this trial lasted for a day. The fusion of 2 identical bodies was much more challenging than the previous trials in various heavens. The tempering process was also considerably lengthy. However, when he emerged this time, his physical body had reached the level of a treasure, and this was just in terms of toughness. The explosive power of his body was also terrifying. When combined with his divine body, he could fully unleash his strength. With a single punch, he could destroy the world. In future close combat, his weakness was no longer a weakness. Instead, it became his strength. The Sword Dao, the extreme Dao of slaughter, a path where he could devastate all enemies with his attacks, crush the void with his fists, and suppress the world. The road to invincibility. This path was bright all the way. Jian Wushuang was now even more certain that he hadn't made the wrong choice back then. After the 3rd level, as Shan Jun had said, he never came out again. However, the tempering on the 3rd level was the most special trial he faced. Ironically, he found this trial to be exceptionally simple. A tremendously tough crystal was transformed by him into a set of scales. He spent 780 years. In those 780 years, the 3rd level he was on seemed like a larger universe within a universe bronze furnace. In the hottest of voids, he endured for more than 700 years, and he forged a set of scales. What he gained, however, was a pair of hands covered in scales. Each scale was as tough as a prehistoric treasure, possessing inherent power without needing the support of his origin source, carrying the might of innate treasures. The 4th level began, and then the 5th and the 6th, he kept tempering the scales in various ways, until his entire body was covered in black scales. These scales moved as if they were alive, responding to his will. Once fully extended, Jian Wushuang transformed into a giant armored beast, towering tens of thousands of feet tall. On his palms, sharp fingertips gleamed. 7,000 years passed. He barely survived the 6th level. In truth, he had tempered his entire body with scales on the 5th level. The space on the 6th level was a massive ancient palace, with a colossal universe bronze furnace placed within. However, this time Shan Jun didn't appear. He endured 100 years alone within the universe bronze furnace, embedding the scales thoroughly into his flesh. The supreme physique. He had achieved it, but it hadn't reached the realm of perfection yet. Swaying his tail that had grown behind him, Jian Wushuang felt like an ancient artificial species, a creature that had traversed from ancient times. He breathed lightly, his nostrils emitting 2 thin streams of air. His form shrank, reaching only around 10,000 feet in height. Every bone and scale on his body was extremely symmetrical. Standing there, He resembled a towering mountain, unshakable. Is this the peerless state? He clenched his fist slightly, and the immense power made the stable space quiver with ripples. The sheer eruption of power gave him the combat strength of a half-step emperor. The saying, "strength can shatter all techniques," wasn't just empty words. Crucially, he possessed the ultimate Tao of the origin of all things. With the combination of these two, who among the grand Yen immortals in the world could stand against him? Even with Wan Xing's imitation eternal treasure, Jian Wushuang was confident he could crush him with a single punch. He even felt the urge to crush an innate treasure. In his hands, he left imprints when he exerted his full force on a spherical innate treasure, eventually revealing several cracks. This was the extent of his physical strength now. Whoever had an innate treasure that even the emperor couldn't easily destroy was child's play to him. His demeanor shifted slightly, and his dragon scales receded, revealing his human form once more. It's time to leave. The 7th level posed a threshold he couldn't cross. Pulling out a token, he shifted out of the trial tower. His physical body had reached a level beyond excellence, but perfecting the 9th refinement seemed almost impossible. He had managed to pass the first 6 levels mainly due to the clandestine assistance from Shanjun, especially concerning the Dragonlock veins. Exiting the trial tower, Jian Wushuang felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Senior, Shanjun was already there above the cosmic bronze furnace, seemingly waiting for him. Indeed, you should inherit the Thunder lineage's physique. Your speed and endurance are exceptional, Shanjun commented. Jian Wushuang smiled modestly. Senior, nothing escapes your notice. However, my knowledge of the Thunder lineage, especially concerning avatars, is limited. He truly lacked in-depth understanding of the freshly tempered avatars. The Thunder lineage's physique excelled in both speed and resilience, surpassing other transcendent physiques. Yet, his avatars were different. Strictly speaking, his avatars couldn't be considered individual entities. They were shadow splits. Hundreds of shadows burst forth from Jian Wushuang's body, each taking the form of a different exotic beast. In these forms, his avatars were incredibly robust, especially when combined with the beast god weapon, which made his progress through the 6th level remarkably smooth. The origins of the Thunder lineage were subtly connected to the space beast god, which explained a lot. The more benefits the beast god weapon offered, the more Jian Wushuang desired its complete form. Regrettably, it had shattered, breaking into countless pieces. Currently, he possessed only the Kindragon wings and eye, with Candle Dragon Claw being another fragment. Only 3 pieces were known. The real core of the Beast God weapon was the Candle Dragon breastplate and the Beast God heart in the core. These constituted the essence of the Beast God, Candle Dragon. The old man with sheep horns had once mentioned that a mighty divine master had slain an equal-tier opponent with the Beast God weapon, Candle Dragon. The complete Candle Dragon perfectly suited powerful beings skilled in divine body and spatial manipulation. When fully unleashed, it could yield a strength tens of thousands of times greater than a divine master's. That was its terrifying aspect. What was even more horrifying was that such a potent treasure had been shattered. Jian Wushuang couldn't help feeling a sense of lament. How could such a precious item be broken? What had transpired in the era of the Qixin Temple? Perhaps only the core members of the temple knew the truth. Demon Sound Mountain. The surrounding notes from all directions intoxicated people. The universe origin source on the demon ceiling pillar gleamed brilliantly. After Jian Wushuang followed Shan Jun out of the demon suppressing pillar, the beast god realm stopped operating. After thousands of years of accumulation, Jian Wushuang's aura had undergone a huge change, especially the changes to his physical body. In the past, his ethereal form was merely a shadow, but now, with his body perfected, he could effortlessly transform it into the most powerful physique, even taking on the shape of a mythical beast. Senior Shan Jun, this origin source on the mountaintop, Jian Wushuang gazed at the Galaxy M like universe origin source, his mind enraptured and deeply captivated. It was simply breathtaking. He had witnessed a similar scene in the universe bronze cauldron, but this grandeur, this boundless origin source, surpassed the remnants left by the emperor by countless times. Even the tens of thousands of intertwined sword origins he had captured outside Chihuang City couldn't compare to this single strand of origin source. He was too strong. Shan Jun's true form, an evil giant beast, raised its enormous head and also gazed at the sky. This is the universe's origin source, comparable to the origin source of your original universe. Jian Wushuang was deeply shocked. Comparable to the original universe. How incredibly powerful was the original universe. It had nurtured countless domains and birthed numerous cosmic powerhouses. Its origin source was the foundation of all domains. Controlling a domain could elevate one to the status of an emperor. But a universe? Jian Wushuang dared not imagine it. This immensely powerful origin source was beyond his reach. The origin source in the cosmic bronze cauldron, though similar in aura, was significantly smaller in scale. Jian Wushuang, your journey is still far from over. In truth, there's no need to be overly devoted to your physical body. Shan Jun surprisingly started to persuade him. If others had witnessed this, they would have found it unbelievable. The devouring demon lord, possessing the formidable power of Tier 6, was actually caring for Jian Wushuang, a grand yen immortal, in such a way, always reminding him. Jian Wushuang was overwhelmed by the favor and did not know how to answer. Your origin source is incredibly strong, but your divine body is only average. Even with the enhancement of extraordinary treasures, this is not a sustainable strategy. Presently, you should focus solely on the Tao, continuously expanding the advantage of your origin source. Merging the Tao within the Qishan Temple is not difficult. You'll understand it later. The real challenge lies in expanding your origin source. Shan Jun saw through Jian Wushuang from the start. Although he couldn't perceive the existence of the extreme Tao by observing Jian Wushuang's potent origin source, he could guess that Jian Wushuang was the ultimate Tao, as an existence on the ultimate Tao, neglecting the strengthening of the origin source and breaking through oneself, choosing instead to refine the physical body, especially with only an average divine body, seemed unwise to him. In his eyes, Jian Wushuang shouldn't be so unwise. Although he had never practiced himself, as the former main cultivator of the Tao in the Qishan Temple, there weren't many emperors stronger than him when it came to cultivation matters. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang made up his mind and decided to share his plans with Shan Jun. Of course, he only disclosed a part of his future plans. Even though Shan Jun had shown him great favor, there were certain things that even parents or mentors couldn't be told as a practitioner. For example, the existence of the extreme Tao. Shan Jun, who was beside him, listened to Jian Wushuang's narration. His eyes flickered, and his crimson eyes sparkled. Beast God Weapon. Only when he heard this name did Shan Jun's eyes narrow. Buzz. Jian Wushuang immediately revealed the candle dragon wings. In general, the beast god domain was hard to discern, but the candle dragon wings were a unique pair. Splash! The spatial cleaving represented that the candle dragon was the master of space. Shan Jun's pupils contracted. After silently calming his emotions, he spoke. You mentioned that there is another part in the hands of another trial participant? Jian Wushuang nodded and replied, I speculate that what he possesses should be the candle dragon's claw. He also recounted the events involving Tian. Now, the only trouble was how to retrieve the candle dragon's claw from Tian's hands. The old man with goat horns had agreed, providing the origin source for forging the beast god weapon, making this ancient treasure once again magnificent. The colossal head of Shan Jun turned, its ferocious fangs trembling. Yang Sanmu agreed to provide the origin source for you to forge the beast god weapon? Haha, this kid's vision is just like mine, unchanged, he chuckled. Jian Wushuang heard this statement, feeling a bit puzzled. Elder, you also know the goat horn senior? Logically speaking, these two individuals shouldn't have much connection. No. And our relationship is quite deep. Shan Jun couldn't help but sigh. Back then, he and Yang Sanmu had both been confined in the third prison. At that time, Yang Sanmu was just an ordinary Tier 5 emperor, imprisoned in the third prison because he had offended the higher-ups of the four great temples. In the terrifying third prison, even Tier 5 emperors were in mortal danger. If it weren't for him back then, Yang Sanmu probably would have perished long ago. Little fellow, your great fortune has arrived. Shan Jun understood in his heart. Originally, he had planned to inform Zhu Qi to come and take Jian Wushuang back. Now it seemed unnecessary. Jian Wushuang was walking a similar path as him. Now he understood. Jian Wushuang's plan was something he intended to assist with. If he hadn't known about the beast god weapon, he wouldn't have helped. In his view, Jian Wushuang should focus on cultivation. Breaking through the origin source was the key. Pondering these side paths was a waste of time, and such resources were also wasted. Now it seemed he had been short-sighted. With the enhancement from the beast god weapon, Jian Wushuang's divine body would improve 1,000-fold. It would be effortless. If the physical body wasn't perfected, it would reveal its flaws at that time. How about directly reaching the pinnacle now, refining the physical body to perfection, and paving the way for both divine body and origin source in the future? The physical body is the vessel of the divine body, and the divine body is the vessel of the origin source. One layer complements the next. Shan Jun and Qiu Huang, among others, only saw the second layer, mistaking Jian Wushuang for the first layer. In truth, Jian Wushuang was at the fifth layer. He had already planned out everything for the future. The physical body, divine body, origin source, space, time, and even the universe. Among these, the physical body had the lowest cost. This expenditure was truly insignificant. The cost of the divine body was the highest. The rest required personal insight, and treasures didn't offer much help. Just like enhancing the origin source, ordinary sword Dao treasures couldn't assist Jian Wushuang at all, and powerful ones were extremely rare. Take the strand of sword Dao origin source he captured outside Xihuang City. It was obviously helpful to him. However, that legendary sword Immortal made even Xihuang look up to him. This kind of sword Dao origin source was a treasure that could be encountered but not sought. Couldn't be exchanged for at all. There were indeed many treasures for enhancing the divine body. Now it had been increased to 3,000 times. If he were to spend all his treasure points, his divine body could break through to 5,000 times. But what good would that do? The higher the basic divine body, the weaker the amplification in the beast god domain. He would need powerful beast god weapons. With stronger beast god weapons, the amplification of the divine body would undergo a qualitative change, and then his physical body wouldn't be able to keep up. To solve this problem, he needed to find a key. Jian Wushuang's choice might seem useless, but in reality, his perspective surpassed that of many others. This also marked a crucial turning point for him, thanks to the profound origin of the extreme Dao. It led him to make significant changes in the path he was about to tread. Senior, Jian Wushuang was somewhat moved, unsure of what Shan Jun intended to do. However, he could sense that his journey toward perfecting his physical body was not going to be as easy as he had thought. On the slopes of the Demon Sound Mountain, despite the eternal presence of the Eternal Tower, many emperors were still injured. After all, they were besieged by hundreds of Tier 4 devouring demons, a force no one could easily withstand. Fengyu, if we can't figure out a solution soon, we'll have to retreat. Emperor Qishui couldn't help but speak up. He had climbed halfway up the mountain, reaching almost his limit. It was incredibly challenging to go any further uphill. Instead of fighting to the death with these creatures, he considered stepping back to contemplate the origin source more deeply, grabbing whatever benefits he could in the process. However, Emperor Fengyu was different. She possessed the eternal treasure and could use it to ascend the mountain again. But the problem lay with the countless devouring demons. She couldn't handle them alone. She needed the help of others. Now, the two emperors found themselves on opposing sides once again. Fengyu's eyes turned icy cold. She snorted and said, "This opportunity to observe the universe's origin source up close is incredibly rare. Qishui, if you're afraid of death, you can retreat at any time. No one is stopping you here." She spoke the truth. Although she needed others' help, she didn't care about Crimson Water at all. But now, not only did this guy want to retreat, he was also trying to persuade others to follow suit. That was unacceptable. Qishui pondered for a moment, his small eyes darting around. Fengyu, you can't put it that way. Observing the universe's origin source from such a close distance is a tremendous opportunity for all of us. We can't just give up easily. But being trapped by these evil alien beasts now, unable to ascend the mountain and unable to practice in peace, plus the injuries we've sustained, this is not good for us. The two of them continued to argue. In their hearts, they were as clear as a mirror. Fengyu wanted to use these people to help her reach the top. Redwater didn't want to see Fengyu grow stronger, and he certainly didn't want to be the one taken advantage of. This left some others in a dilemma, especially the peak-level experts from other domains. And there were some Tier 3 emperors too. Every one of them had experienced tremendous luck to reach this point. It wasn't easy for them, and they were reluctant to retreat. However, they were weak, and not retreating was not an option either. If they insisted on fighting, the first to fall would be the Tier 3 emperors. So, they thought, why not retreat to a safer place halfway up the mountain and cultivate there? While everyone was still debating, subtle changes occurred outside. A devouring demon, draped in a crimson cloak, slowly walked to the front, followed by hundreds of Tier 4 demon lords. Beside him, there was a sea creature with gills. Though its aura appeared weak before the emperors, the perfect scales covering its entire body gave it an emperor-like presence. Standing in front of the Tier 4 demon lords, it didn't seem out of place at all. The two figures at the forefront were Jian Wushuang and Shan Jun's avatars. Shan Jun's avatar, condensed with all his power, possessed combat capabilities comparable to a Tier 5 emperor. It was a level stronger than the other avatars. What's this? When Jian Wushuang transformed back into his original form, those emperors didn't recognize him at all. But he recognized the Eternal Tower in front of him. The eternal treasure he once looked up to was now in a sorry state. Many emperors hid inside it, too afraid to show themselves. Are these emperors from your original universe? Shan Jun communicated through mental transmission. Jian Wushuang nodded silently. Shan Jun raised his finger slowly and said, "Have you any close master or kin among them?" Jian Wushuang shook his head again. "I'll understand." A gleaming black light emanated from the tip of Shan Jun's finger. A forceful devouring energy burst forth, causing even the evil aura in Jian Wushuang's heart to tremble in resonance. In that moment, Jian Wushuang understood why the immensely powerful and evil Shan Jun treated him this way. It seemed he regarded Jian Wushuang as one of his kind. The opportunity sent to me. It couldn't be these emperors, could it? Jian Wushuang speculated inwardly. If that were the case, he was slightly worried that the higher-ups in the Qishan temple might come after him. Shan Jun should be aware of this and wouldn't go to extremes. Although the Eternal Tower remained unshaken after this attack, many emperors inside sustained minor injuries. Their divine bodies swayed, and their origin sources became unstable. The terrifying force of that single blow made many people decide firmly. They had to descend immediately. They couldn't afford to continue fighting to the death, especially those Tier 3 emperors. Although the Eternal Tower weakened the black light pillar to 1/10,000th of its power, a trace of the residual shockwave still entered the interior of the Eternal Tower. For those Tier 3 emperors, such a method, even with their own defenses, would likely pulverize them instantly. If the Eternal Tower retreated to defend, its strength might diminish to 100,000th. If it retreated into the void, it might be even weaker. But Fengyu refused to compromise, stubbornly commanding the Eternal Tower to hold its ground halfway up the mountain. Despite being protected by a layer of light shield, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but feel a shiver. Was this the might of a top emperor? Even a slight brush with this power would probably lead to her demise. Such a terrifying presence was suppressed here on the mountaintop so casually. The immense power of the Qishan temple was beyond imagination. Listen, you reptiles inside. If you want to ascend the mountain, leave behind 10% of your origin source. I won't interfere. If you refuse, don't even think about staying on this mountainside. Shan Jun's threatening tone was straightforward, leaving no room for negotiation. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but sigh. Strength truly meant confidence. If their strengths were equal, There might be political maneuvering, but when one side overwhelmingly dominated the other, the stronger party wouldn't bother with such tactics. They'd be direct. No compromise meant get lost. If he can do it, so can L. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. If Shan Jun had this power now, he would have it in the future too. 10% of the origin source from so many emperors. What a grand gift. Inside the Eternal Tower, two factions emerged. One supported Qishui, and the other, Fengyu. These old rivals found themselves once again on opposing sides. Qishui didn't believe, nor did he want to believe, Shan Jun's words, but Fengyu was willing to take the risk. If these devouring demons didn't obstruct her, she had a chance to reach the top. For these emperors, the biggest threat on Demon Sound Mount was the devouring demon lord. Without these creatures blocking their way, most of the Tier 4 emperors had a chance to ascend. The remaining major peak forces, lacking the eternal treasures, sided with Fengyu. On Qishui's side were scattered cultivators and representatives of small forces. Fengyu, do you take us for children? What kind of silly stunt are you trying to pull? If you actually trust what that demon lord says, you might as well trust me. One say you have the potential to be a great emperor. Mocked a follower of Qishui directly. The several Tier 4 emperors below didn't dare to be so arrogant. After all, this was the Eternal Tower. Even if Fengyu didn't dare to offend everyone and deal with them, she could still ask for their help. The situation couldn't be settled abruptly. Emperor Fengyu sat on the throne, her face turning red with anger. She bellowed, "Fine. Since you're unwilling to take the gamble, then we will. You can leave now." Upon hearing this, those who opposed her revealed their reluctance once again. A group of Tier 4 devouring demons stood outside. If they were to go out, they would be instantly pulverized. "Ruler Fengyu, we are still considering this matter. Give us some time," someone pleaded. "Yeah, after all, it's one unit of origin source. Even if we cultivate here, it would take several epochs." Others chimed in, trying to persuade her. However, Fengyu, as a demon lord, was not one to vacillate. Her stern face twitched slightly and she spoke coldly. "I'll give you 3 breaths' time. If you don't decide, one will personally send you out." Her tone left no room for negotiation. After all, there were people waiting for their response outside, and she couldn't afford to delay. They needed to make a decision quickly, confirm the authenticity, and, if it was false, retreat. The devouring demon lord with the crimson cloak possessed immense power. Although he couldn't shake the Eternal Tower, a single attack could injure a Tier 4 emperor. His attacks were swift, striking tens of thousands of times within a single breath. They wouldn't be able to withstand it. A decision had to be made at this moment. They couldn't afford to drag this out. There was no benefit and no solution in sight. It was simply a waste of time. "We agree." In the end, these people compromised. Leaving meant certain death, but staying meant they could at least put up a fight. Qishui remained expressionless, but a trace of a sneer escaped his heart. He had also agreed. One unit of origin source meant nothing to him as a special life form. He wanted to contradict Emperor Fengyu. This was a strategic move. If they lost the gamble, Fengyu would undoubtedly become the target of everyone's resentment. At that time, he could step forward and take charge of the situation. In the original universe, among the 5 major peak powers, aside from the Eternal Tower, the strengths of the other forces were more or less the same. Otherwise, Chang Shintian wouldn't have appointed him as the Supreme Elder back then. These peak forces could deal with Tier 3 emperors or small factions, but when facing Tier 4 peak-level experts, nobody would spare them a second thought. Not even Fengyu. Once they retreated below half the mountain's height, the Eternal Tower lost its significance. At that point, no one would pledge allegiance to her. Instead, she might lose her prestige. After all, it was her suggestion to contribute 10% of their origin source. That was the Emperor's origin source. 10%, do you know how many years one needs to cultivate to obtain that much? Under ordinary circumstances, it would be manageable. But this was not an ordinary time. This was the Qishan Temple, a land rich in great opportunities. Losing 10% of the origin source here meant weakening their combat power by 30%. Feng didn't want to let them go because of this reason. If they failed, their collective strength would diminish, providing an opportunity for people like Qishui. Everything was part of a scheme. It could only be said that Qishui's faction was currently in an advantageous position. If what that being said was true, Feng Yu's prestige would skyrocket to its peak. But for Qishui, it didn't matter much. He was a lone wolf and he could continue his journey up the mountain. Moreover, he wouldn't tarnish his reputation. After all, none of them had suffered any losses. Calculating all this, Feng Yu's decision carried the highest risk but also the greatest benefits. Qishui faced the least risk and also stood to gain a lot, restraining others and suppressing Demon Lord Feng Yu. He didn't care much for the Demon Sound Mountain. Despite being among the strongest, he always found himself trailing behind. He tread this path with great difficulty, and naturally, the benefits he reaped were not as plentiful as the others. That's why he opposed Feng Yu to sow discord. This might not be apparent to others, but it was crystal clear in the minds of Jin Wuyang and Tong Tian Buddha. Knowing that everything was a scheme, they firmly stood by the side of ruler Feng Yu. From the beginning, they didn't say much. After the decision was made, Feng Yu waved her sleeve, and a divine body emerged from the eternal tower. Everything went smoothly. Originally, Shan Jun was prepared to devour these emperors, but with the presence of the eternal tower, Feng Yu and the others hid inside. He had no choice but to guard halfway up the mountain. The two sides were in a stalemate. Now, no matter how much origin source they could exchange, it was a profit. Even if these people reached the mountaintop, what could they do? After all, they weren't eating his family's rice. But all of this was only in the Vermilion Bird Temple. His relationship with Zhu Qi was the only reason he wasn't interfering. If it were a trial for Grand Yen Immortals, he wouldn't allow such antics. Shan Jun held a cluster of origin source and nodded. With Jian Wushuang in tow, he directly reached the mountaintop. Jian Wushuang also put away his true form and transformed into a human body. Little guy, do you know what true defiance is? Shan Jun's true form raised his hand and crushed dozens of Tier 4 Emperor's origin sources into a lump. I want this origin source to reverse the strength of the divine body, and even reverse it into a lump of flesh and blood, Shan Jun said with a ferocious expression. Reverse. This was true defiance. In the past, what he had seen as defiance was just shouting slogans. At most, within a small world, he could reverse some rule operations. But within the universe, truly reversing the path of cultivation was genuine defiance. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang was once again teleported into the demon ceiling pillar. On the universe bronze furnace, Shan Jun's divine body appeared. If you grasp this opportunity, you can refine it to the extreme, he said. What? Refine to the extreme? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Originally, it was thought Shan Jun wanted to extort emperors, exchanging some of their emperor's origin source for him to devour. Who would have imagined that Shan Jun could reverse the origin source, transforming it into a mass of flesh and blood to help him complete his 9 refinements of the flesh? Swoosh! A massive amount of origin source was invested by Shan Jun into the universe bronze furnace. This time, Shan Jun personally manipulated the universe bronze furnace. In just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the furnace opened again. Remember, don't be careless inside. After all, this is the Emperor's flesh and blood. Even if you have an extraordinary physical body, it's still difficult to integrate, Shan Jun cautioned specifically. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily, expressing his deep gratitude. This opportunity was no less than Hu Qing's inheritance. He would definitely go all out to integrate the Emperor's flesh and blood. Not only would the foundation of his physical body rise, but it would also enhance his divine body considerably. It all depended on the nourishment from this mass of flesh and blood. Emperor's flesh and blood shouldn't be that bad, Jian Wushuang thought. If placed in the treasure vault, such a large amount of Emperor's flesh and blood could be divided into tens of thousands of portions, each worth at least several 100,000 treasure points. An immense opportunity. Apart from the beast god weapons, this was the most powerful treasure Jian Wushuang had encountered since entering the Qishan Temple. After entering the universe bronze furnace, Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged. The emperor's flesh and blood resembled a meatball to him. Floating above his head, countless veins instantly connected his entire body, ceaselessly supplying him with the essence and blood contained within. The precious emperor's essence and blood from the outside world was like a blood pillar to him. Although his physical body had reached an immortal state, he still felt immense pressure. It was the pressure of bloodline. After all, he was just a grand yen immortal. After a slight suppression, he began absorbing the emperor's essence blood with all his might. His physical body continued to strengthen, and his divine body kept rising. Indeed, you are what you eat. This old saying was absolutely right. This mass of flesh made his physical body 100 times stronger than before. As for the 9 refinements, he dared not be certain. Everything depended on fate. Although Shanjun had said so, he still wasn't very confident. But he did have confidence in continuing the refinement, especially in increasing his divine body. The basic divine body had already reached 4,000 times its original strength. But when he fully unleashed the beast god domain, it reached around 10,000-fold. It seems that the beast god domain can only increase to around 10,000 times at most. Jian Wushuang speculated to himself. He just didn't know what would happen once the beast god weapon's origin power fully condensed, restoring a trace of ancient power. At that time, how powerful would his beast god domain become? Just the increase in divine body alone shouldn't be a problem to break through 10,000-fold. Once the divine body crossed the 10,000-fold mark, it would be a qualitative change. Previously in the Great Sea region, 1,000-fold was the limit. In the original universe, the limit was 10,000-fold, the strongest life that the original universe could nurture. Then what about in the river of time? And so, Qi Shui was born as a 10,000-fold divine being, but was he still 10,000-fold now? Jian Wushuang had many doubts in his mind. Just from this lump of flesh, he could glean something meaningful. One drop of essence within it was condensed by a peak-level Tier 4 emperor. The weight of this drop of essence made his courage tremble. Even though his physical body was already immensely powerful, he still couldn't fully absorb it. He could only store it within the origin source and contemplate it carefully. Based on his contemplation, the owner of this drop of essence was likely the Qi Shui. With just 1/10 of the origin source's power, he condensed a drop of essence so powerful. No matter how he tried to absorb it, he couldn't manage. He couldn't even hold it steadily. He could only store it within the origin source. Phew! Jian Wushuang let out a breath. Unbeknownst to him, he had spent 1,000 years in this universe bronze furnace. It was time to leave now. As for that drop of essence, he might have to wait until he underwent the 9 refinements to absorb it. After leaving the bronze furnace, Shanjun was already waiting for him outside. Seems like you're brimming with confidence now. No need for many words. Maintain this state and enter the trial tower, Shanjun said with a slight smile. His confidence was indeed at its peak. Jian Wushuang couldn't deny it. An unparalleled aura surrounded him, his physical strength nearly reaching its peak. The temperature inside the universe bronze furnace was inconsequential to him now. Of course, if he didn't use the beast god domain, it wouldn't be so easy for him. Yes. Jian Wushuang bowed respectfully and entered the trial tower. Huang had mentioned before that once they left, they couldn't return. Shanjun's ability to let him re-enter the trial would surely astonish Huang. Even Jian Wushuang found it unbelievable. People who supported him were all so peculiar. None of the prominent figures from the Qishan temple took an interest in him. Although the old man with goat horns treated him well, it was probably only because of the beast god weapon. In terms of legitimacy, the old man with goat horns didn't seem to be a core figure either. Jian Wushuang shook his head, dismissing these thoughts. He couldn't care less about these matters. If someone believed in him, he wouldn't disappoint them, regardless of whether they were high-ranking members of the Qishan temple. Inside the trial tower, as he entered once more, he felt an unsettling premonition. It made his heart race, a chilling sensation creeping over him. It was a chilling aura, reminiscent of the first time he had encountered Shan Boom. Upon entering the tower, Jian Wushuang finally saw the world on this level. It was a world on the brink of collapse, a planet on the verge of destruction. Mountains crumbled, and the heavens and earth trembled. Majestic mountains crumbled, rivers flowed backward, and the land shattered. It was an apocalyptic scene. All of this destruction was caused by a massive exotic beast. Jian Wushuang's body trembled slightly. The sound emanating from the wings of the beast made him incredibly uneasy. What is this? Jian Wushuang became more and more familiar with the sight. The colossal exotic beast looked like an enlarged mosquito. A mosquito capable of destroying an entire planet? It made him instinctively fearful. Is this really just a mosquito? Jian Wushuang wondered. What was the trial tower playing at? Soon, a brief message appeared on his identity token. After reading it, Jian Wushuang felt his scalp tingle, and cold sweat trickled down his back. Unbelievable! Whoosh! The trial tower didn't care about his thoughts. Since he had entered, he had to undergo the trial. This time, the trial was the shortest but also the most tormenting. Jian Wushuang would never forget it for the rest of his life. He might even have nightmares about it in the future. Who could imagine a gigantic mosquito extending a proboscis like a towering pillar, attempting to devour his blood essence? He still felt the intense pain on his back. If someone were to look at him from behind, they would see a massive disc on his back, covered in tiny holes like acupuncture points, appearing extremely frightening. Before he could rest for a moment, his body was once again transported. This level's trial was even more outrageous. The previous level, despite its pain, was relatively bearable. In the past, he might not have been able to withstand such strong suction, but after absorbing the Emperor's blood essence, his physical body had undergone changes. He could easily endure the pressure. But this 8th level was beyond his expectations. A vast space was filled with countless containers, appearing harmless. There was no trace of danger. However, when he jumped into one of the containers, he understood that this level was far from simple. As soon as he entered the container, the liquid inside began to boil. His entire body became unbearably itchy, making it impossible for him to endure even for a moment. He desperately wanted to break free. This torture was unimaginable, far worse than being bitten by a mosquito. When the mosquito bit him, it took away impurities from his body, making his physical body even more perfect. But this level aimed to transform his body further, making it even more flawless. Countless nutrients entered his body, causing a complete transformation. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned bloodshot. At this moment, the immense benefits were overwhelming, and he couldn't bear them. All he wanted was to get out. However, the entrance to the container had been sealed shut, and he couldn't escape. With just a breath, he passed out. He woke up later, lying outside the container. His body was completely immobilized, devoid of strength. It seemed the treasures he had prepared earlier were meant for this purpose. It was no wonder he needed to enter the universal bronze furnace and require so many treasures. Once his physical strength was fully restored, the memory of that excruciating sensation made Jian Wushuang's eyes narrow to slits. Scanning the surroundings in the entire space, there were tens of thousands of vessels, all of which he had to immerse himself in one by one. This wasn't refining the body anymore. It felt like pure torture. After hesitating for an entire day, Jian Wushuang lacked the courage to jump into the second vessel. His determination was unwavering, but the fact that he hesitated for such a long time indicated the immense torment he endured within. Thud! Jian Wushuang made up his mind and offered no resistance. Even if he fainted, it would only be a momentary feeling. He decided to endure, but upon entering the second vessel, he didn't experience that sensation. Instead, he felt an indescribable comfort, which soothed his physical body. After soaking for about a day, when he emerged once more, his physical body had undergone a transformation. The green scales on his body were gradually fading away, and his physical strength kept increasing. The best part was that he no longer felt that peculiar itching sensation, which boosted his confidence significantly. This time, after coming out for just a few breaths, he decided to enter another vessel again. But as soon as he jumped in, that strange itching sensation spread throughout his body once more, causing him to faint instantly. This cycle repeated endlessly. Finally, he managed to struggle through this stage. Next, it was time for the most formidable refinement. Swish! The 9th layer of space. A figure in a black robe was already waiting there, and it was none other than Shan Jun. When Jian Wushuang arrived here, he was taken aback. This place was still in primordial chaos, and the sky was tinted with a faint crimson hue. Shan Jun sat cross-legged there. At first glance, it seemed very close. However, when Jian Wushuang tried to move closer, he found that no matter what he did, he couldn't approach Shan Jun. An illusion? Puzzled, Jian Wushuang looked at Shan Jun and respectfully said, "Senior." There was silence, no response at all. At the next moment, a spatial crack revealed a damaged throne, with a skeleton atop it, adorned with ancient decorations and some old ornaments. This skeleton had likely been here for quite some time. Jian Wushuang had been here for the duration of an incense stick's burning, but his identity token provided no clues whatsoever. This left him feeling somewhat helpless. He didn't know what to do. Thud, clang, clang. Ancient notes echoed. Everything here seemed peculiar. From one of the notes, Jian Wushuang sensed a familiar sound, the demonic melody from the Demon Sound Mountain. This ancient space and the ancient throne. What was the secret behind all this? His mind kept working, trying to decipher everything. Where is this? The origin source of the universe? Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up as he suddenly realized something. Wasn't this the origin source he encountered in the universe bronze furnace? Although this strand of origin was not as massive as the one in the Demon Sound Mountain, it was still significant. Moreover, just like the Demon Sound Mountain's origin source, it also carried the demonic melody. I see. Jian Wushuang understood now. This space was probably not the trial tower. That's why there were no hints on his identity token. This place was likely the true core of the universe bronze furnace. The crimson color above represented Shan Jun, and the notes represented the origin source of the universe. He had been moved here probably because of Shan Jun. It seemed the great opportunity was not in the Emperor's blood essence but here. No wonder Shan Jun was so extravagant, refining the Emperor's origin source into flesh. It was because there was an even better source of origin here, waiting for him to devour. A majestic fish with wings, soaring through the chaotic skies, emitted the melodic notes that filled the air. In his heart, Jian Wushuang held one thought, tinged with a hint of apprehension. This was the boon granted to him by Shan Jun, yet it was also a treasure of the Qishan Temple. If he were to devour it, Qishan Temple might not let Shan Jun off easily. Jian Wushuang felt conflicted. Shan Jun's figure sat calmly, his eyes profound, observing everything. In his eyes, countless images constantly evolved. Jian Wushuang gleaned much from this. Though not explicitly stated, it was clear that Shan Jun had placed him here for this strand of origin source. If that's the case, I shall etch this favor into my soul. If I succeed one day, the world shall only have two. Jian Wushuang silently swore in his heart. The day he attained enlightenment, he would definitely free Shan Jun from the demon ceiling pillar on this Demon Sound Mountain. Such a great favor, apart from teacher Xianxia, no one else could compare. Buzz. The fish was enormous, its wings capable of blotting out the sun, its voice akin to beautiful chants. Enchanting. The strand of origin source within it was even more captivating. Jian Wushuang's figure moved, vanishing directly from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already on the fish's head. The origin source within its body was exceptionally gentle. This was the first time Jian Wushuang had encountered such a mild origin source. He couldn't even bear to swallow it in one gulp. Previously, dealing with those remnants of emperors in the great wilderness, their origin sources were extremely violent. Even the origin sources of the Grand Yen Immortals, despite his absolute strength, couldn't be subdued peacefully. But now, this universe's origin source was exceptionally gentle. Jian Wushuang squatted down slowly, gently stroking the fish's dorsal fin, which was very smooth. With a single hand press, A powerful devouring force began absorbing that strand of origin source. Jian Wushuang's body trembled along with it. The power of that origin source was truly astonishing. His own origin source was expanding incessantly in this moment. The threshold of the extreme Tao's origin source was also trembling, on the verge of collapse, ready to break through at any moment. The comprehension of the spatial origin officially reached its peak at this moment, thoroughly mastering the essence of space, the very essence that only emperors could cultivate. Even though he was just a grand yen immortal, he had truly grasped it. Though it was his first time, his strength underwent a transformation. He hadn't expected that the first breakthrough would be in spatial understanding. Next was the extreme Tao. The extreme Tao encompassed all things. The universe's essence included everything. Following that was the sword Tao. Unfortunately, the sword Tao contained within this strand of origin source was too weak, not significantly enhancing his ultimate sword Tao. Instead, as he absorbed these essences, he saw a scene within them. It was a battlefield. A woman wearing a light blue robe, standing on the battlefield as if she were a deity, untouched by the battle's chaos. Around her waist, there was a sheathed long sword. In the next moment, the woman's figure flickered, too fast for Jian Wushuang to see clearly. All he saw was a massive sword shadow descending from the sky, cleaving the entire battlefield in half. This scene was incredibly awe-inspiring. Jian Wushuang's eyes widened in amazement. The woman was remarkably similar to the figure described by Qiu Huang. At least, their strength seemed to be at a similar level. This brief vision etched itself deep into Jian Wushuang's mind. In this moment, his ultimate sword Tao also underwent a transformation. Within the immense sword shadow, there was an enormous cage. The 7th level of the ultimate Tao. It was complete. He had waited for this moment for far too long. His ultimate swordsmanship was his most potent means of combat. While the extreme Tao encompassed many things, the ultimate path was purer, more in line with his abilities, and more complex. This sword strike, descending from the heavens, it transformed into a spherical cage, enveloping the entire world. This sword strike was called Imprison. A single sword strike could confine the heavens and also annihilate everything. This is the ultimate 7th level of the ultimate sword Tao. Jian Wushuang felt a profound sense of clarity throughout his being. A breakthrough from all directions made him almost disbelieve what was happening. Here was the immense power of the universe's origin source. Although just a tiny strand, it brought him immeasurable benefits. Could even be said as endless. Within the extreme origin source, there appeared a colorful origin source, continuously spreading and gradually harmonizing with the extreme origin source. This breakthrough was not merely in swordsmanship. It was primarily due to that scene. What truly benefited him immensely was the extreme origin source. The extreme origin source was already lagging behind, and now it seemed he could digest it slowly, and continuous breakthroughs were not a problem. Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged in the depths of space, dedicating himself to cultivation. Physical trials were long forgotten. Now, the crucial thing was to digest this tremendous opportunity. 9 Revolutions Grand Yen Immortal, mastering the spatial origin source, the 7th level of the ultimate Tao. The former was the origin only emperor-level experts could grasp, while the latter had just met the standard of merging Taos. His current strength was too unbalanced. His strengths were too strong, and his weaknesses were too weak. Qixin Temple. Inside the Sea of the Universe. At this moment, Zhenling was worrying about the news brought by Shen Wan. He had just appeared and now needed to withdraw again. This was not what he wanted. But if he didn't leave, he wouldn't be able to withstand that great calamity. The same calamity that even the Qixin Temple couldn't bear back in the day. What could he use to confront it? Zhenling, with eyes resembling emerald green beans, blinked a few times before swiftly scanning the celestial curtains. Amongst the numerous curtains, he spotted Jian Wushuang and his face darkened. Especially upon seeing the multicolored cosmic origin source on Jian Wushuang's body. His anger surged, almost making him stomp his feet and curse in fury. Zhui! Zhenling roared in anger. Although Zhu Yi was the foundation of the original realm, he was the one controlling the entire Qixin temple. A strand of cosmic origin source was incredibly precious, yet it was devoured by a grand Yen immortal. If it were someone else, he might not have minded much, especially if the little monk he had his eyes on had absorbed it. But now, this ability to devour was possessed by Jian Wushuang, a mere youngster, which was a direct challenge to his authority. His roar shook the entire sea of origin source. Compared to the origin sources here, that strand of cosmic origin source was like a bowl of water in the vast ocean. Whoosh! Zhu Yi tore through space and instantly arrived at the sea of origin source. With her clear and cold eyes, she observed Jinling's fierce and sinister demeanor, furrowing her brow. My lord! Zhu Yi stood tall, exuding an air of confidence and valor. Jinling, perched in the pavilion, saw Zhu Yi's composed demeanor. Just as he was about to explode in anger, he had a change of heart. He had just weakened the authority of the four great temples. Stirring up trouble with Zhu Yi over the universe origin source at this moment might lead to unforeseen consequences. His expression softened slightly, and Jinling cleared his throat, saying lightly, Temple Master Zhu Yi, it seems that something has changed in the original realm. It appears that something is missing. Don't you think? The words of Jinling were eloquent. If it weren't for the establishment of the Elder Palace this time, he would have scolded Zhu Yi severely. Now, the Qixin Temple faced relocation, and everything had to be done cautiously. After all, the core of the Qixin Temple was still the four temples. Although he had a say, these puppets were not simple-minded. If they decided to establish their own faction, he wouldn't be able to do anything about it. He could only suppress them. In the end, he would be the one to suffer losses. The Black Tortoise Temple had gradually distanced itself from the Qixin Temple. Its main camp was in the outer hall, ready to detach at any time, so he dared not offend Xianwen. He had to deal with these people slowly, without haste. Something's missing? Zhu Yi's face darkened. The intricate thoughts of 7 orifices Linglong heart immediately struck her. She instantly figured out what was happening. However, her thoughts didn't align perfectly with those of Jinling. He cursed inwardly, regretting sending Zhu Qi to Demon Sound Mountain. There must be a problem on Demon Sound Mountain. Zhu Qi still had a connection with Shanjun. But now, she couldn't afford to reveal any flaws in front of Jinling. She could only feign composure. Don't know. Please enlighten me, my lord. Jinling raised an eyebrow. If there was a problem in his territory and he had to clarify it, someone would be punished. However, a sudden inspiration struck him, and he came up with a solution. It's my negligence. The original realm is undergoing a trial, and you, as a busy person, might have forgotten. There's a problem on Demon Sound Mountain. Jinling sighed, then continued, It's my fault. There are too many things in the original realm, including some miscellaneous items that need to be moved to the 4 great secret realms. Fortunately, those places have been cleared out. I think we should move Demon Sound Mountain there. Move it there. Zhu Yi cursed silently. Wasn't this just a blatant robbery? My lord, I don't think it's necessary. Moving Demon Sound Mountain, a small mountain, might cause some inconvenience. Zhu Yi tried to advise. Jinling waved his hand, smiling faintly. I'll think we should move it. If we don't, certain individuals might consider it their private property and give it away. He was right. Shanjun had given the essence from the universe bronze furnace to Jian Wushuang this time. Next time, he might even give away the entire universe bronze furnace. That was unacceptable. Jinling waved his hand, and a bubble enveloped Zhu Yi. The two of them left side by side. Zhu Yi, if I recall correctly, it was you who placed Shanjun on Demon Sound Mountain, right? Jinling asked casually. He hadn't fully awakened back then, but he knew some things. Shanjun was suppressed by Vermilion Phoenix Temple, and Zhu Yi threw him into the Demon Sound Mountain. Officially, it was suppression, but in reality, Shanjun was quite free on the mountaintop. His clone could roam freely on the mountain, and due to Zhu Qi's influence, Shanjun also managed the backyard of the Demon Sound Mountain, the demon sealing space. According to the normal procedure, demon lords who hadn't surrendered would be thrown into prison. But Shanjun hadn't surrendered and didn't stay in the third prison for long before being released. The reason given back then was even more absurd. They claimed they were afraid Shanjun would perish in the third prison, so they suppressed him in the Demon Sound Mountain. This reason was simply outrageous. A top-tier 6 demon lord, and they were afraid he would perish in the third prison. Were they suggesting he should enjoy a comfortable life in the fourth prison? Now that they had a hold on him, they had to send him to prison without fail. If the third prison didn't work, then the second prison it would be. Let him experience what a real prison was, what true purgatory meant. The third prison housed Tier 6 emperors. The second prison was where Tier 6 emperors were sent to die. Moreover, there was no historical record of imprisoning demon lords below Tier 6 in the second prison. Some criminals, like those who mistakenly fought Tier 5 emperors, were generally sent to the fourth prison. Those who wanted to kill those Tier 5 emperors would be sent to the third prison. Back in the day, the old man with goat horns was almost sent to the third prison due to someone's plot. But fortunately, Shanjun helped him, saving his life. In the end, after being acquitted and released from prison, he became one of the senior elders. Now, he resided in the Elder Palace, his power fully restored, thriving in the world. For a Tier 6 emperor to enter the second prison was akin to a Tier 5 emperor entering the third prison, with a 90% chance of falling. Going in meant facing death. Inside, they imprisoned ancient demons and ferocious beasts, each incredibly powerful, possessing the strength of a Tier 6 peak. Even though Shanjun was a demon lord, his power had been suppressed for so long. He was just freed and thrown into the second prison. Life was not easy, and there was a high possibility of perishing. Zhenling had long been displeased with these devouring demons and oppressed them as soon as they emerged. As for the Lord of 10,000 demons, he was completely enslaved, becoming a living target, splitting into millions of avatars, serving as stepping stones for Grand Yen Immortals and even Yen Immortals. As for Wind Demon, he had allied himself with the Xuanwu Palace, and Zhenling didn't want to intervene. But the remaining few he planned to deal with one by one, especially Heart Demon, an ambitious fellow. He couldn't afford to leave someone like that alive. Ambition coupled with power. What he feared most was Heart Demon. Although Heart Demon was powerful, it didn't mean he lacked fear. Zhenling blinked his small eyes. Heart Demon had almost become the Lord of Heart Demons back then. How could he not be afraid? Demon Sound Mountain. On Jian Wushuang's side, he had no idea that his consumption of the universe's origin source had alarmed a formidable figure. For him, Zhenling was indeed a god. He was the god of the Qixin Temple, and even in the long river of time and space outside the original universe, he could be considered a godlike figure. In the mysterious space where time flowed at an exaggerated speed, there existed a great figure inheriting the legacy of the Qixin Temple, capable of suppressing the universe with a mere wave of their hand. Phew! Jian Wushuang slowly rose, completely digesting the essence of the universe's origin source. His extreme Tao became even more profound, and the power of all things responded to his every movement. Crack! He clenched his fist, and black thunder crackled around him. This was not the power of his physical body. It was the power of the origin source. His yen power had begun to transform, becoming the power of all things, although still somewhat incomplete. El unexpectedly mastered a bit of the power of all things in advance. After receiving the complete inheritance, Hu Qing gained the power of samsara. Now, without practicing any supreme techniques, he had acquired the unique power of all things in the universe. He had some understanding of this phenomenon. The strongest individuals in the myriad Tao path could grasp a bit of the power of all things when they reached the extreme level. Upon closer inspection, his extreme Tao seemed to be an upgraded version of the myriad Taos, more stable and powerful than the myriad Taos. Since mastering the extreme Tao, he had progressed from thought power to the power of devouring. Now, the power of all things had emerged, indicating that his speculation was correct. Once the extreme Tao broke through to the 7th level, he could truly master the power of devouring, completely eliminating any thoughts of devouring. Moreover, the power of the 7th level would completely transform into the power of all things. Currently, he had only grasped a bit of it. Once he truly mastered the power of all things, his strength at that time would probably surpass that of an ordinary emperor. The power of all things. He had heard Chihuang mention it. It was just an unintentional remark when introducing the myriad Daos. He hadn't expected to possess such an ability. Quite interesting, isn't it? With my current strength, I'm probably invincible even among Grand Yen immortals. This trial has become somewhat boring. Jian Wushuang sighed. He hadn't expected that this journey of his physical body was initially meant to enhance his body to the utmost, but it had led to a breakthrough in his origin source, propelling his extreme Dao into the 6th layer and his ultimate sword Dao into the 7th layer. Such opportunities were rare in one's lifetime. Now, Jian Wushuang had gained confidence in the path of Dao merge, even though Shan Jun had mentioned that it wouldn't be difficult within the Qixin Temple. Still, he couldn't afford to be careless. Becoming an integrated immortal and mastering the path of Dao merge were both significant hurdles. Even with the support of top-tier treasures, he dared not be complacent. When the last trace of his origin source completely merged, Jian Wushuang's figure vanished from the mysterious space. Shan Jun, who was sitting cross-legged in the center, slowly stood up, his eyes filled with starlight. At first, he was puzzled by Jian Wushuang's lack of reaction and later felt regretful for the skeleton on the throne. He didn't choose the devouring Dao. Shan Jun felt a sense of confusion. He deliberately placed that skeleton there, wanting to see Jian Wushuang's reaction. However, Jian Mjushuang showed no response whatsoever, leaving Shan Jun perplexed about the devouring power within Jian Wushuang. In the mysterious space, only Shan Jun remained, lost in thought. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang had been transported to the top floor of the trial tower. This place represented the pinnacle of achievement and perfection. Once the 9th refinement was completed, his physical body would be thoroughly perfected. Though it wouldn't reach the innate level of perfection, its postnatal strength would still be exceptionally crafted, flawless in every aspect. In ancient times, when the focus was on the physical body, there were prodigies who underwent the 9 refinements. In the present era, or rather, among the geniuses in the river of time, no one paid attention to whether their physical bodies were perfected because nobody pursued the path of divine bodies. It was just too challenging. In ancient times, the flesh and divine bodies of several beast gods sustained an era. But now, what remains? One couldn't possibly hunt down special lives to strengthen oneself. In the original universe, it might not be obvious, but in the river of time, special life forms were united. Though not of the same lineage, they were of the same kind. All special elf forms naturally formed groups. This was the confidence of Qishui. He had no roots, no origins, and no ties. The destruction of the original universe had nothing to do with him. At worst, he could run away and do even better in the river of time. Hunting down special life forms to pursue the divine body path was simply unrealistic. Apart from this path, there were only geniuses and treasures of heaven and earth left. These things weren't something ordinary powers could produce. To accumulate a divine body that was tens of thousands of times stronger after birth, one would need to have broken through the origin source long ago with the necessary resources and energy. So, at present, very few pursued the divine body path, and one could even say there were almost none. Only special life forms would take this path. Cultivators wouldn't choose this path at all. If they had the courage, they would be better off cultivating various Dao paths, at least comparable to the ultimate Dao. The divine body path might not even match up to the ultimate emperors even after breaking through tens of thousands of times. Most origin source experts would enhance their divine bodies to 5,000 times at most. That was enough to bear the origin source. Going beyond that was just a waste. Whether the divine body was perfect or not didn't really matter. Why waste so many resources? That was the concern of cultivators nowadays. Jian Wushuang was different. His origin source was exceptionally powerful, and he needed a strong divine body. A powerful divine body naturally led to a perfect physical body. Moreover, it had to be taken to the extreme for a solid foundation. A mere tens of millions of treasure points didn't count for much. Compared to the path ahead, what did these things matter? The enhancement of the basic divine body wasn't a small expense. It was only 4,000 times stronger. Going up another 1,000 times would probably require several million treasure points. The further one progressed, the more countless treasures were needed to accumulate. Breaking through a millionfold was as difficult as reaching the sky, perhaps requiring the consumption of several universe secret realms. However, those secret realms had long been seized by special life forms. What could Jian Wushuang use to exchange for them? Only strength mattered. The trial tower. The 9th level. It was vastly different from what Jian Wushuang had imagined. Instead of a grand hall, he found a thatched cottage with a battered incense burner. Wisps of faint white smoke rose from it, carrying a refreshing scent that made him feel comfortable all over. After the 8th refinement, Jian Wushuang's outer appearance had reverted to human form, and his scales had faded. It was a phenomenon known as atavism, as explained by Shan Jun. As for what he would look like after the 9th refinement, even Shan Jun couldn't provide a clear answer. It was said to be unique, possibly modeled after the birth of a special life form in the universe. Jian Wushuang took careful steps, approaching the thatched cottage cautiously. His footsteps were light, not disturbing even a blade of grass. As he entered the courtyard, his identity token displayed an upgrade. Sit in meditation for a lifetime. This prompt left him baffled. Sit in meditation for a lifetime? Was this the 9th refinement? Did it mean sitting in meditation for a lifetime in this world? Or was it referring to his entire existence? Jian Wushuang couldn't believe it. How could a grand Yen immortal like him sit in meditation for an entire lifetime? But when he stepped inside the thatched cottage, everything changed. His visible aging process was apparent, though ordinary people wouldn't perceive it. The structure within him was depleting every moment. Within 100 years, he would surely die. This lifetime was meant to be a mortal one, he thought. The strange sensation made Jian Wushuang extremely anxious. He hadn't experienced anything like this before. Just sitting here, waiting for death. Time passed much faster here, enabling his powerful physique to deteriorate so rapidly. He could sense the vitality within him diminishing, but his divine body and origin source were growing. The rate of growth was astonishingly swift. 100 years here equated to 1,000,000 years of cultivation elsewhere, all without the need for active practice. Moreover, his divine body was becoming stronger. According to his calculations, it could grow a 100-fold in a year. Although the growth would undoubtedly slow down in the later stages, it would still increase at least 1,000-fold over 100 years. How miraculous this was! With such a marvelous treasure, even a pig could become a grand Yen immortal, and perhaps achieve success in the Tao, reaching the pinnacle of the Emperor realm. This straw hut is undoubtedly the most top-tier treasure in the universe. Jian Wushuang was certain. It surpassed the eternal treasures, even surpassing the universe bronze furnace. Within this straw hut, the contained origin source was incomprehensible to Jian Wushuang. All he could see was a world of dazzling colors. It contained the origin source of space, he knew, but what were the countless interweaving lines? This he truly could not understand. Touching with his hand, there was no sensation. When he withdrew his hand, it disappeared. Invisible, intangible, and imperceptible. But when compared to his own physical body, he could clearly see it. Could this be? Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed. This is time, the legendary origin source of time. Space corresponds to the Emperor. Once space is perfected, one can reach the pinnacle of the universe. But what about the strongest beings at the pinnacle of the universe? What origin do they cultivate? The answer is the origin source of time. The highest truth of the universe, the flow of the river of time represents time. This signifies the ultimate peak. Mastering space means having the entire universe underfoot, while mastering time allows one to transcend space, existing not in the present, not in the past, and not in the future. Those who have transcended exist above time. Jian Wushuang never expected that he would encounter the origin source of time. The thought of devouring instantly arose within him, but he had no way to start. This origin source was simply beyond his reach. In the entire Demon Sound Mountain, this origin source was probably the most precious. What Jian Wushuang didn't know was that the 9 major spaces inside the trial tower were not in Demon Sound Mountain. The most precious thing on Demon Sound Mountain was the universe bronze furnace. Such a precious treasure could not possibly be located here. He sat in meditation for a lifetime. 100 years passed like the blink of an eye. After 100 years, Jian Wushuang's body became like the skeleton he saw in the mysterious space, devoid of vitality, turned into a mere frame, the shadow of the divine body side. This life passed quickly, but it was very real because he felt time up close. Although it was only 100 years, his progress was comprehensive, not inferior to devouring that strand of universe origin source. The divine body broke through to 5,000 times its strength. Although he still couldn't break through 10,000 times in the beast god domain, compared to before, he now maintained the beast god domain with even greater ease. Even when he unleashed the beast god domain, there was no burden. Instead, it brought him a sense of joy. The remnants of skeletons, along with Jian Wushuang's divine shadow, left the thatched hut behind. His body moved seemingly on its own, drifting for an unknown duration until he arrived at a valley filled with piles of bones. His task was to find a new skeleton within the valley. According to the hints on his identity token, acquiring the best skeleton came at a steep price. In this valley, there were skeletons of 4 different colors: gold, silver, copper, and iron. Jian Wushuang entered the valley at a leisurely pace, finding the bones scattered as if discarded carelessly, reminiscent of an ancient battlefield in the great desolate wilderness. These skeletons likely belonged to individuals with emperor-level strength, specializing in refining their physical bodies. Some bones bore faint traces of color, suggesting they might be from unique creatures or descendants of beast gods. After a day of exploration, Jian Wushuang found over 100 golden skeletons, among which 17 bore colored markings. The intensity of these markings represented the strength of the original owner. Jian Wushuang understood the significance. Although they were lifeless, the aura of the original owners wouldn't fade away entirely. He could still sense it. On his way back, after rigorous selection, he chose a skeleton with lines of colored markings running across its body. He believed his choice was the most suitable. It wasn't about being the best, but being the right fit. As for the cost he had to pay, he squinted his eyes. Very primitive, fierce battles, without absolute strength. Aspiring to obtain a skeleton was pure folly. Although these skeletons' previous owners were likely plundered by powerful figures from the Qishan temple, out of respect for strength, the temple had established rules. Battles were held among peers, and the victor could plunder the loser's spoils. The losers, they didn't stand a chance to obtain the skeletons. From the moment Jian Wushuang made his choice, a divine shadow appeared on the selected skeleton. Its appearance was enchanting, impossible to discern its gender. The entire body was smooth, resembling white jade. It had no ears, or perhaps its ears were incredibly large, forming a rhombus shape, yet there were no gaps inside, as if it were just an ornament. His eyes were white with a hint of red, incredibly clear. 9 revolutions? Jian Wushuang's lips curled into a smile. Among those of the same level, there were few he truly feared. During the 9 revolution stage, perhaps only Hu Qing had surpassed him throughout the entire universe, but even Hu Qing was not a match for him now. Humankind, die! The phantom above the skeletal figure solidified instantly. Though he was at the 9 revolutions level, his speed surpassed that of ordinary half-step emperors. For a moment, Jian Wushuang dared not underestimate his opponent. With a fierce shout, he soared into the air. His enormous candle dragon wings blocked out the sun and sky as his figure flickered, instantly spanning billions of miles. I'll use you to test my 7th level of the ultimate Tao. Jian Wushuang's phantom materialized into reality. An ancient and simple long sword, without edge or scabbard, flew out in an instant. Jian Wushuang grasped it, gazing up at the stars. A tremendous aura soared into the sky. Heaven's punishment. Earth's prison. Annihilate for me. Jian Wushuang's figure expanded dramatically, casting off an aura of suppression. In the sky, a massive phantom descended. A cage from the heaven's punishment. Those imprisoned within it were destined to die. Buzz. The skeletal figure's eyes revealed a hint of fear. Although he had long since perished, he retained a shred of consciousness, preserved for the purpose of dealing with challengers. Over countless years, he had faced numerous challenges, winning every time. Among those of the same level, his combat power had reached an invincible level. Whether it was Grand Yen Immortals or Emperors, he was unstoppable. Of course, if it were a cosmic peak powerhouse or a Tier 6 Emperor, that was hard to say. After all, he was just a preserved consciousness with limited strength. If such a figure set their sights on the skeletal frame, the high-ranking members of Qishan Temple might even be willing to make a fair exchange with that formidable individual. Boom! As the heaven's punishment sword strike was unsheathed, it imprisoned the entire land. The skeletal shadow, filled with unwillingness, was instantly obliterated. Despite possessing the power of a half-step emperor, he had no qualifications to resist Jian Wushuang in his current state. The 10,000-fold divine body, the ultimate Tao, the extreme Tao, regardless of which aspect you looked at, it crushed the half-step emperor on all levels. After erasing the last trace of the imprint, the skeleton became Jian Wushuang's. Swish! Jian Wushuang and the skeletal figure entered the deepest part of the 9th level space. The most crucial part of the 9 refinements was yet to come. The power of flesh and blood, which Jian Wushuang lacked not at all, and the most suitable skeletal frame for him were already in his possession. His body had reached the level of immortality. It instantly condensed again. The old skeletal frame, which once belonged to the deceased, meant nothing to him. In the space of the 9th level, there stood a colossal palace above. Outside the palace gate hung a portrait. Jian Wushuang didn't recognize the figure in the painting, but when he saw the signature, his mind trembled violently. Desolate. This was the title of a divine master. Jian Wushuang might not have heard of it, but for the strongest beings in the universe, it was just a name that made his entire being clear. Immediately, he respectfully saluted and dared not look directly. Upon entering the grand hall, a familiar bronze furnace was placed there. Indeed, this universe couldn't be separated from this universe bronze furnace. Jian Wushuang sighed in relief upon seeing the furnace. However, this time, there was no shadow of Shan Jun above the furnace. He had to handle everything himself. Holding the skeleton, the moment he entered the universe bronze furnace, he felt the breathtaking temperature. It was 100 times stronger than the universe bronze furnace in the outside world. The moment he entered, he utilized the power of all things, stabilizing it within his divine body. The flesh and blood of his physical body were instantly vaporized. He had no skeleton. The final step of the 9 refinements was bone replacement. Shedding the old and growing new bones. The true limit of the acquired realm was achieved through this process. Many primordial gods and demons had racked their brains trying to cultivate the origin source Tao, but their ancestors were too foolish to create a method to practice it. Early ancient cultivators, however, managed to explore the structure of ancient gods and demons, creating supreme physical bodies. The 9 Refinement Tower was one such creation. Later generations represented those who came afterward. When Jian Wushuang was born, he might not have represented later generations, but it didn't mean he wouldn't in the future. The fusion of divine body, flesh, and bones was an immense challenge, one only Jian Wushuang understood. The universe bronze furnace slowly closed, and Jian Wushuang closed his eyes. He couldn't afford to make a mistake at this crucial moment. Boom! As he completed the final step, a tremendous change occurred on the Demon Sound Mountain. The once pitch-black mountain turned snowy white, and the sky above started to snow lightly. Shan Jun, tugging at the chains, looked up at the sky. Thunk! Zhenling and Zhu Yi appeared out of thin air, without tearing the space at all, instantly arriving at the Demon Sound Mountain. This technique could only be performed by Zhenling. Not even powerful beings like Zhu Yi could achieve it. For a Tier 5 Emperor to reach the Demon Mountain, they would need to rely on an array for teleportation. Congratulations, Lord Zhenling. Your secret technique has been perfected, Zhu Yi complimented with a smirk. Zhenling smiled but remained silent. Without waiting for Zhu Yi, he stepped forward, reaching the mountain top directly. Several dozen emperors on the mountainside, who had crossed 6,000 feet, felt nothing as if nobody had passed by. However, they sensed an irresistible aura on the mountaintop, stirring their hearts. Zhu Yi, following in the wake of the figure, turned into a stream of light and reached the mountaintop. This time, the group felt the aura. It's over. Something big is about to happen on this mountaintop. Many emperors started to worry. Just as they had cleared the path, suddenly two powerful auras appeared on the mountaintop, one suffocating and the other immobilizing. None of them dared to resist, feeling helpless against these forces. This strength was beyond their comprehension. The inexperienced among them might have thought it was a Tier 5 emperor. But those with greater knowledge, like Feng Yu, instantly recognized that the two who had just arrived were at least Tier 6 emperors, and one of them was a peak-level Tier 6 emperor. Shallow waters make much noise, and ignorance leads to arrogance. They couldn't understand these matters and couldn't grasp them. All they could do was stop in their tracks, afraid to move forward. On the mountaintop, Zhenling arrived, and the previously sent Zhu Qi hastily climbed the mountain. "I'll pay my respects to Lord Zhenling and the temple master." Zhu Qi bowed, not daring to raise her head. Her eyes, however, rolled around, trying to catch a glimpse of Shan Jun standing at the forefront. Zhenling appeared kind. He approached Zhu Qi and lifted her gently. Patting her shoulder, his voice was gentle as he said, "We're all allies. There's no need for such formality. By the way, who did you bring to the Demon Sound Mountain?" Zhenling asked knowingly. Zhu Qi might not understand what was happening, but Zhu Yi, understanding Zhenling well, furrowed her brows. But for the moment, she couldn't come up with a good plan. It seemed that the Demon Sound Mountain couldn't be protected today. Even so, she couldn't let Zhenling off too easily. She couldn't make it too convenient for him. If he kept doing this, finding random reasons to move things around in her original realm, within a few years the 4 temples would be completely emptied. Still waiting for Zhu Qi to speak, Zhu Yi was the first to talk. "Zhu Qi was following my orders to bring a little fellow into the 9 Refinements Tower." Indeed, she had given the order. When Qiu Huang reported the matter to her, she was quite surprised. She hadn't expected that among these grand Yen immortals, there would be someone willing to enter the 9 Refinements Tower. You see, the threshold for entering the 9 Refinements Tower was possessing a 10,000-fold divine body. Among the inheritors of these grand Yen immortals, there was only one with a 10,000-fold divine body, a special life form. Interestingly, among the grand Yen immortals plundered from other universes, there were a few practitioners with 10,000-fold divine bodies. During the plunder, several Tier 5 emperors were mobilized, but she managed to bring them over. 10,000-fold divine bodies of Spikela life forms were not uncommon. Each universe would give birth to a few one-of-a-kind special life forms. Whether flesh, rock, plant, or even liquid types, they were all 10,000-fold divine bodies. This fact was not surprising. They were born 10,000-fold, and their bodies were naturally incredibly strong, so they didn't need to enter the 9 Refinements Tower. When she heard that Jian Wushuang wanted to enter the 9 Refinements Tower, she was startled at first. Later, considering Jian Wushuang possessed the Beast God weapon and the ultimate Tao, she understood. She wasn't like that old-fashioned Qiu Huang. With a turn of her thoughts, she saw through Jian Wushuang's ambition and had Zhu Qi bring him to the Demon Sound Mountain. Now, it seemed the problem lay here. She just didn't know if it was Shan Jun who had an issue or if Jian Wushuang was the one at fault. Missing a strand of the universe's origin source might seem like a big deal or a small matter. If they really wanted to investigate, Zhu Qi would probably suffer this time. If he didn't want to be punished, he would have to hand over the Demon Sound Mountain. This time they were in a dilemma. It seemed that even sacrificing Zhu Qi might not be enough to save Demon Sound Mountain. Zhenling's smile widened as he turned to look at Zhu Yi. "Oh, is that so? In that case, who was responsible for the missing strand of universe origin source on Demon Sound Mountain?" Zhenling stared at Zhu Yi, completely ignoring the bound Shan Jun. "Was it her?" Jinling pointed at Zhu Qi, her expression turning cold, and her aura rising. Then she pointed at Shan Jun and said in a cold voice, "Or was it this filthy crawler?" Zhu Yi's face turned icy. She had been overseeing the core of the original universe and had no idea what had happened here. Faced with Jinling's accusations, she wore a displeased expression. Shan Jun's eyes turned bloodshot. Clenching his teeth, he roared, "Old bastard! It was me! What are you going to do about it?" He hadn't anticipated that giving that strand of universe origin to Jian Wushuang would lead to such a disaster, drawing even Jinling here in person. But he couldn't admit it was Jian Wushuang's doing, because Jinling wouldn't believe him anyway. Moreover, Jinling was vengeful, and this visit was likely aimed at him or Zhu Yi. Without the protection of the Vermilion Bird Temple, his days were about to get much worse. Jinling's fingers flickered, repeatedly pointing at Shan Jun, and he roared, "It's not your turn to speak here. Shut your mouth." A beam of starlight flashed, instantly piercing through Shan Jun's body, causing his aura to plummet. Just a single finger reduced his strength by 30%. If Jinling were to strike, it was likely that one blow would be enough to kill him. Even Shan Jun, with his strength, couldn't help but show a terrified expression. For a moment, he dared not utter another word. On the side, Zhu Qi hurriedly knelt down, wanting to plead with Shan Jun, but was stopped by Zhu Yi. "There's nothing for you here, Zhu Qi. Why are you still staying here? Go!" Zhu Yi roared, her eyes fixed on Jinling. It seemed this time they were serious. There was no room for mercy. Letting Zhu Qi leave was a way to protect her. If she stayed, she would have to go to prison with Shan Jun. Jinling's eyes flickered, and his voice turned cold. "This time I'll let it go. But remember, everything in Qixin Temple is left behind by the ancient gods, not something you own. Understand?" Zhu Qi was escorted down the mountain. On the mountaintop, the cold wind bit into the skin. Fluffy snowflakes suddenly descended. The reason why Demon Mountain was black was because of the origin source in the universe bronze furnace. Now that the origin source had been given away, the earth fire was gone too. Demon Mountain had returned to its original appearance. Shan Jun preferred Demon Mountain the way it was now, covered in pristine white snow, just like when he first met Zhu Qi. Watching Zhu Qi leave, Shan Jun finally felt relieved. He could handle whatever was left. Going to the third prison was not a big threat to him. Once his strength fully recovered, he might even live more comfortably than now. Jinling's eyes were sharp. How could he not know what Shan Jun was planning? Stealing the origin source of Qixin Temple. Shan Jun, your crime deserves death. Considering your past connection with the old master, I'll spare your life. However, you can't escape punishment. I will send you to the second prison, and you'll serve a sentence for 10,000 eras. As soon as her words fell, even Zhu Yi, let alone Shan Jun, was shocked. The second prison, 10,000 eras. Wasn't this a death sentence for Shan Jun? It was no different from death. Zhu Yi would never forget what was held in the second prison. She would rather die than see those things come out. Shan Jun, compared to those existences, was like a child. "You damned old man, if you have the guts, kill me now. Why bother scheming like this?" Shan Jun knew Jinling's murderous intent but showed no fear, cursing vehemently. Jinling stood aside, thoroughly enjoying the situation, a smug look in their eyes. Turning to Zhu Yi, Jinling continued, "Master Zhu Yi, any objections?" Zhu Yi, feeling the intense gaze upon her, quickly shook her head, not daring to say much. "Also, I will personally send this Demon Mountain to the 4 great secret realms. I'll entrust it to the Elder Palace to manage. You don't mind, do you?" Gritting her teeth, Zhu Yi shook her head again. Suddenly, she thought about the person inside, unwilling to give up hope. He spoke up, "My lord, there are still people inside the Demon Sound Mountain. I'll wait until the young one finishes his trial, and then I'll send the Demon Sound Mountain to the 4 great secret realms. Delaying it for a while wouldn't hurt. What if there was a change in the situation?" On the Demon Sound Mountain, apart from the large bell, there was also a cosmic treasure. Although this treasure was connected to the 9 Refinements Tower, it was still a complete cosmic treasure. She couldn't bear to just hand it over to the Elder Palace, especially with over 10,000 emperors on the mountain. El don't need you to worry about that. When he comes out, one will bring him back. Jinling was determined to reclaim the Demon Sound Mountain. Now that the Elder Palace was established, there was no shortage of manpower, but they lacked treasures. They needed a treasure that could win people's hearts. Moreover, there were more than 10,000 emperors on the Demon Sound Mountain. At this moment, the two of them realized that there were still tens of thousands of emperors on the mountain. When they moved to other timelines in the River of Time, they would be unfamiliar with the places. They would need a lot of manpower. Initially, they didn't plan to bring these emperors, but now it seemed they had to. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, they not only took back the Demon Sound Mountain but also sent so many emperors to the Elder Palace. Demon Sound Mountain. On a snow-white path, countless emperors gazed up at the mountain peak. The aura that had just swept through froze them in place. A force that shook heaven and earth, lifting the entire Demon Sound Mountain with the power of the world. What kind of power is this? Why do I feel like Demon Sound Mountain is moving? Moving? The few emperors at the forefront couldn't help but tremble. The mountain road on Demon Sound Mountain was already incredibly difficult to traverse, and yet someone was able to move the entire mountain. That person must possess unimaginable strength. Space twisted and shifted. Zhenling at the mountain peak was extremely delighted. Moving Demon Sound Mountain was too easy for him. It was as simple as raising his hand. A treasure trove had been shifted to the core area of the Qixin Temple. The core of the Qixin Temple. The 4 great secret realms overlapped with each other. At the top was the Heaven Realm, vast and boundless. In addition to the vast divine land that stretched out endlessly, countless planets and lands floated in the sky. The civilization here had inherited the remnants of ancient times, with numerous major sects and incredibly powerful forces. Otherwise, the White Tiger Temple, one of the 4 major temples, wouldn't be in such a weary state. Beneath the Heaven Realm was the Earthly Realm. In the Earthly Realm below, the atmosphere was even more bloody. Most humans still lived in tribal societies, in an era even more ancient. In some lands, one could even see ancient gods and demons running wild. Unlike the Heaven Realm, the Earthly Realm was not a unified entity. The arrangement of the Earthly Realm resembled a vast universe, dividing into numerous domains. From a distance, the 4 major secret realms were layered like a towering pavilion. The human realm existed on the 3rd level, a grand universe with several star systems and planets. At the bottom lay the Divine Realm's secret realm, or rather, the Divine Tomb. It was the Tomb of Qixin. Previously, the barriers to enter the Divine Tomb were impenetrable. However, the power within the tomb grew stronger, and the fundamental rules began to give birth to formidable special life forms. Some of these special life forms reached the pinnacle of strength, allowing them to break the barriers and escape into other secret realms. Powerful beings from other secret realms followed suit, infiltrating the Divine Tomb through these openings, searching for the legendary enigma of Qixin that was spread across various realms. At that time, both the White Tiger Temple and the Guardians mobilized, but they couldn't capture the elusive being. Eventually, traces were found in the Forest of Eternal Secrets in the Earthly Realm. Despite the combined efforts of the White Tiger Hall and the Guardians, they couldn't suppress this entity. In the end, even a Tier 6 Emperor perished in the attempt. It took Jinling to personally intervene to suppress the intruder. When dealing with the indigenous powerful figures from the Qixin Temple, Jinling showed mercy. As long as their actions weren't too outrageous, they wouldn't be suppressed. However, breaking the barriers and enabling communication between the 4 major secret realms was unacceptable. Now, the secret realms could freely traverse between each other, and the Divine Tomb was becoming a playground for these indigenous emperor-level figures. This couldn't be allowed to continue. Zhenling took matters into his own hands, suppressing the intruder and sending them to the second prison. Whoever bowed down would eventually be released, but those who refused would remain imprisoned in the second prison forever. Buzz. Space trembled. Although Zhenling had broken free from the spatial constraints, forcefully entering one of the 4 major secret realms still caused significant disturbances. If a Tier 6 Emperor wanted to enter the secret realms, apart from teleportation arrays, there was simply no way to do so. It was only due to Jinling's immense strength that he could barge in. Upon entering one of the secret realms, the celestial temple stationed in the void instantly rushed over from the heavenly realm. Crash! The temple doors swung open. A warrior clad in white armor and a tiger-headed helmet stepped out. His aura was different from the others in the 3 halls. A chilling intent emanated from his eyes. Upon seeing Jinling, he nodded slightly, neither servile nor overbearing. Among the 4 temples, if one were to assess which hall held the most power, it wasn't the outer hall's black tortoise, but the core's white tiger. They controlled the 4 great secret realms and detained countless powerful beings. Over the years, even Tier 6 emperors had been captured. When Qixin crafted them, he left behind numerous guardian gods in the White Tiger Temple, each one a top-notch Tier 6 fighter. Furthermore, the temple master possessed a cosmic treasure, a weapon that had slain emperors of the same tier. Their strength was formidable, perhaps only comparable to the Azure Dragon's temple master. Zhuyi and Xianwen were no match for him. However, in terms of treasures and techniques, the 2 of them were not on par with Zhuyi and Xianwen. The Black Tortoise Hall had established several strongholds, fortified like impregnable fortresses. Even the lords of the universe might struggle to breach them. They were the foremost gatekeepers of the Qixin Temple. In summary, each of the 4 temples had its own strengths. The Elder Palace, on the other hand, was utterly useless, a group of defeated generals. Initially treated like outcasts, they were inexplicably valued by Jinling. Jinling noticed the unfavorable expression on Baiyi's face. He had intended to say a few more words, but now he decided against it. With a disdainful snort, Jinling and Zhu Yi swiftly left the area. The Heaven Realm's secret realm was vast, and not even an emperor could traverse it effortlessly. Only beings as powerful as Jinling could move freely within its confines. The Elder Palace's headquarters were strategically located in the center of the celestial realm. Yuanyang Lake. This place was special. It had been moved from the core of an ancient universe during ancient times. The Yuanyang Lake had once given birth to an extraordinary being, the Yuanyang Lord. However, this powerful being was later slain by the Desolation Divine Master, led by the Desolate God Lord. Even the Yuanyang Lord's lair was relocated to the Qixin Temple. Upon entering the Yuanyang Lake, Jinling extended his palm, and a small, exquisite mountain materialized, with snowflakes drifting above it. The mountain flew out of Jinling's hand, transforming into billions of specks and gently landing on a deserted island. Although the Yuanyang Lake was a lake, its actual area was larger than even the Great Sea region. With only a few people in the Elder Palace, there was plenty of unused space. There had been some commotion caused by the activities of the Demon Sound Mountain, and soon a middle-aged Taoist with a high hat arrived. Upon seeing the newcomer, the Taoist involuntarily gasped, swallowing hard and finding it impossible to leave. The newcomer was none other than Wuxia, a recognized disciple of the Qixin Temple. After a period of exploration with the White Tiger Temple, he promptly joined the Elder Palace when it gained momentum. With his identity as a Qixin Temple disciple, he not only gained substantial benefits but also completely restored his strength. Although he didn't have a token with the word, others respected him greatly due to his status. It gave him a feeling of returning to his former glory. However, upon seeing Jinling's arrival, his enthusiasm waned instantly. He had witnessed Jinling's methods before. Jinling dared to provoke even the 4 great temple. Needless to say, he wouldn't spare a recognized disciple like Wuxia. Moreover, it was Jinling who had stripped him of his status as a recognized disciple in the first place. Little Wuxia, why are you running? In my presence, you should show respect. Jinling observed Wuxia with a playful glint in his eyes. When Qixin fell, the other divine masters perished, and even the emperor fell into a deep slumber. Among the disciples of Qixin, Wuxia was the last one left standing. All his comrades had fallen, leaving him, a deceitful individual, as the sole survivor. With no one else remaining, He had the audacity to return and even harbored the shameless desire to take control of the Qixin temple. Directly thrown out by him, thrown into the outer hall, no one paid any attention to him. Now he has become more sensible, choosing to join the elder's palace. He felt quite satisfied. Upon hearing Zhenling's words, Wuxia quickly coiled up the large snake beneath his feet and respectfully bowed, saying, Wuxia pays his respects to Lord Zhenling. The other elders of the elder's palace, witnessing this scene, became even more certain of Wuxia's outstanding identity. He would definitely be promoted in the future, and they needed to be cautious around him. Those who could meet Zhenling were all A-level figures in the elder's palace. Among them was Yang Sanmu, an infamous fierce general under the Qixin temple, known for his strength and ability to refine treasures. Despite being only at the Tier 5, his status was lofty. All right, I came here without any specific reason. I'm leaving the Moen Mountain to you from now on. The tasks in the original realm are heavy, and the Elder's Palace has just been established. You should share the burden, Zhenling said in a lofty manner, then pointed into the void. Look at what a mess the northern region has become. You should shoulder the responsibility for the White Tiger Temple. The northern region will be completely under your management in the future. If I see such a scene again the next time one come, you won't like the consequences. The scene outlined by Zhenling depicted the entire northern region of the Heaven Realm, where battles were raging everywhere, and countless strong individuals were perishing. In fact, such situations were normal. If there were no risks of falling, how many people would venture into the secrets of the Heaven Realm? He just wanted to take this opportunity to pressure the White Tiger Temple. He casually assigned 1/5 of the territory of the Heaven Realm to the Elder's Palace with a wave of his hand. The master of the White Tiger Temple would surely be infuriated. If the Elder's Palace had once followed the Qixin Temple's elders, the 4 temples wouldn't have been so opposed. Now, the Elder's Palace was filled with a bunch of lowly individuals. Those top-ranking elders of the past hadn't recovered at all. After recovering, they were competing for power with these newly revived beings. Some of these revived emperors seemed dazed, appearing to reprimand them for neglecting their duties, but then immediately handed over a large piece of territory to them. Yes, your subordinate will definitely live up to Lord Zhenling's expectations. Everyone bowed in unison, their expressions solemn, but inside, they were overjoyed. The entire northern territory. How many of them were there? A few thousand at most. The entire northern territory was theirs, with Zhenling backing them up. Management? What a joke. To put it nicely, they were supposed to manage this territory, but in reality it was all about plundering. Those who didn't obey were annihilated outright, while the obedient ones had to provide treasures and resources. In this vast northern territory, there were quite a few Tier 6 emperors. In terms of strength, these people might not measure up, but with the imperial ranking supporting them, suppressing them was a piece of cake. In the Elder Palace, there were also several Tier 6 emperors, ancient powerhouses from bygone eras. They were not afraid. If they couldn't win a fight, Zhenling had their backs. Boom! Zhenling sensed that the people from the White Tiger Temple were approaching. Before they even arrived, he waved his hand and directly pulled out the entire demon ceiling pillar from the Demon Sound Mountain. This scene not only shocked the emperors on the mountain but also sent shivers down the spines of the elders outside. The ancient divine masters of that era were probably not much stronger than this. Just how much of Qixin's power did Zhenling inherit to become this formidable? In Zhenling's hands, the demon ceiling pillar was like a toy. The chains were directly torn apart. As soon as Zhenling felt his body free from restraint, Zhenling grabbed him in his hand. The emperors from the Demon Sound Mountain, after they descend the mountain, take them to the Elder Palace. As for sending them to the second prison, I'll leave that to you. With a single hand, Zhenling threw the bound Shanjun to Wuxia. Yes, Wuxia bowed and accepted the order. The person before him was a familiar face. Back then, he even had connections with a few demon lords. Now, times had changed, and these demon lords, stripped of their powers from Qixin, all met this fate. Back then, Qixin had made it clear, be kind, do not release harm upon other universes. Now he was thrown into the second prison. As a disciple of Qixin, Wuxia was well aware of the dangers inside, which made him tremble. Oh right, there's a Grand Yen Immortal inheritor in Demon Sound Mountain. After his trial, make sure to deliver him intact to the original universe, Zhenling said, glancing at Zhu Yi with a faint smile. This was giving Zhu Yi some face. Zhu Yi took a deep breath and had no choice but to express her gratitude, bowing respectfully. A whole Demon Sound Mountain, completely wiped out. It was handed over to the Elder's Palace, leaving her with only 19 revolutions Grand Yen Immortal. She really wanted to thank Zhenling properly, but her strength wasn't enough. Otherwise, she would have definitely expressed her gratitude. Don't worry, one will personally escort him. Wuxia took on the responsibility, not only sending Shan Jun to the second Bryson but also delivering a Grand Yen Immortal personally. Very well, you may all leave. Zhenling turned around, catching a glimpse of the Divine Temple in the White Tiger Temple before disappearing. When Bai Yi arrived, Wuxia stood tall, exuding pride. Outside, Jian Wushuang remained completely unaware. He didn't know that Shan Jun, who had shown him great kindness, was now in the second prison. He was also unaware of what the second prison represented. Furthermore, he was now at the core of the Qixin Temple. In the universe bronze furnace, the scorching temperature was merely a fading glow. Once Jian Wushuang completed the 9th refinement, without the injection of a suitable cosmic origin source, the universe bronze furnace would be useless. In the outside world, just a moment passed. Yet, in here it had been 1,000 years. A millennium had drained Jian Wushuang's power. Even the origin source was starting to wither, and his physical body was still lacking that tiny bit. Being reborn was the hardest part. The previous 8 refinements had prepared him for this moment, but this transformation was the final and most challenging trial. The skeletal framework, possessing innate lines, was gradually forming, merging with the power of his flesh and blood, inch by inch. The fusion of the two would lead to success. It's over. The beast god's domain can only hold on for 1 more year. The origin source had dried up. The power of all things had been exhausted long ago. Even with abundant yen power, it couldn't withstand the consumption within the universe bronze furnace. Jian Wushuang forcibly activated the origin source. Even with such a robust origin source, it was not enough. Without a sufficiently enhanced basic divine body, he had no hope of completing the 9th refinement. His fundamental divine body was insufficient. If his fundamental divine body had been enhanced to 1,000-fold, he wouldn't need to resort to the beast god's domain. It had been manageable before. The temperature inside the universe bronze furnace wasn't too high, and he had persevered gradually. Especially after the breakthrough of the origin, using the beast god's domain made him even more adept. However, this time entering the universe bronze furnace, he discovered his weakness.